So it's interesting that every time I hear that track, by the way, this is yours truly, attorney Michael Cord, aka Michael X, aka the angriest black man in America, sitting in for my learned, studious, meticulous friend, Charles Ellison, host of Reality Check. Um, every time I either listen to Reality Check, hosted by Charles Ellison, or if I sit in as a guest host, that track that he plays, that track is by Pharoah Monch. And by the way, Pharoah Monch is the greatest MC in hip hop history. And I know what I'm talking about. I mean, I've been into hip hop since the 1970s, late 1970s. I teach a hip hop course at Temple University. I know about flow and cadence and delivery and breath control and proper use of simile and metaphor. You know what Rakim said, Rakim, one of the top five MCs of all time, he said that rap is RAP, rhythm and poetry. Rhythm, the beat, poetry, the imaginative use of language. And Pharoah Monch uses language better and more poetic and more rhythmically and more imaginatively than any MC in hip hop history. Why am I saying all that? Because that track that you hear when this show, Reality Check, hosted by Charles Ellison, when it comes on, it's a track by Pharoah Monch. And I'm laughing because I can't tell you the real name of the song because I will be fined by the FCC. Let me just say it's called Get Up. So if you Google Pharaoh, he spells it Pharoahe, Pharaoh, last name Monch, Monch. And just Google that name and put Get Up, and you'll find out the real name of the song. But you got to check him out. I wasn't even planning to talk about Pharoah Monch or hip hop or anything like that. But when I heard that beat that was played by producer extraordinaire Troy Wilmore, I said, wow, I got to talk about that and give a shout out to Charles Ellison. As I said at the outset, this is yours truly, attorney Michael Cord, aka Michael X, aka the angriest black man in America, sitting in for the learned, the studious, the meticulous Charles Ellison, who was not available yesterday or today or tomorrow. He's taking a well-deserved break, but not really because he's doing hard work. He's always doing work, researching to be one of the greatest news correspondents and radio show hosts here in Philadelphia. So big shout out to him. Also big shout out to Dee Patel, the director of programming and news, and also certainly Sarah Lomax Reese, the CEO of WURD. All of them allowed me to sit in today. But the biggest shout out goes to the judge. The judge said, yo, Michael X. Well, he didn't say Michael X, but he said, hey, Mr. Cord, I understand from one of my clerks that you have some stuff to do today, so we want to make sure that we get you up first on our Zoom hearings beginning at 8:45, 9 a.m. So I got in, got out, and I'm here with you all. I got several topics I want to talk about, but I'm not going to get to all of them. Why? Because you got many other topics that you probably want to talk about. And every time I'm on the radio, I always look at it as if the listeners and the callers are the co-host. So they drive this car. They determine what we talk about. I follow their lead. But I have my own agenda, as any professional radio show host should prepare an agenda and try to put that agenda forth based on his or her research. But you can't just focus on what you as the host want to deal with. You got to find out what the people want to talk about. So what I want to talk about is critical race theory. I'm actually teaching a course in the fall at Temple University, and white Republicans have lost their, let me put it this way, racist white Republicans have lost their damn mind. They don't want critical race theory to be taught. They don't even know what it is. But I'll talk more about that later and why I love it. I love it when haters hate. I love it when haters get mad. Whatever I can do to make haters hate harder, whatever I can do to make haters get even madder, I do it. And what I've done recently is to agree to teach a course addressing critical race theory. And I'm going to explain all that later. That's one thing I want to deal with. The second thing is Bill Cosby. I've been an attorney for more than 26 years, a trial attorney. And I learned a little bit as a result of that. I learned a little bit in law school, learned a little bit in my more than 25, 26 years. And I can tell you about the Bill Cosby case. Now, I don't know much about plumbing, so you don't hear me on the radio talking about plumbing or posting stuff on social media about plumbing. I don't know much about automobiles except how to put gas in them. So you don't hear me posting stuff about auto mechanics on social media or talking about it on the radio. And I would just ask that everybody else stay in their damn lane. I mean, I understand that you got your own opinion, but an opinion and a position are two different things. An opinion is just something you think. An opinion is just something you believe. But a position is based on research. That way you ain't just talking, but you know what you're talking about. So when I see people talking about the Bill Cosby case, whether they're for or against the result, most of them have no idea what they're talking about. And it's not because they're dumb. It's because they're just not lawyers and they haven't done the research. And they don't even really have to be lawyers, but they haven't done the research. They haven't done the legal research to understand what Rule 404B is and what due process means and what the Fifth Amendment is and all of that other good stuff. So I'm going to give you a Bill Cosby Case 101 lecture today. Get your pens out, get your pads out, because we're going to talk about all that good stuff. And number 3 on the list, actually I should reverse it, because number 1 I said was critical race theory, and of course I'm teaching at Temple. Number 2 I said was Bill Cosby Case 101. And number 3 I'm saying is callers, comments, and questions. But I want to flip it, because the first item on the agenda is you. You're the co-host. So your calls, your comments, your questions take priority. Yeah, I got stuff I want to talk about, but it's not about me. It's about you. And it's so much about you that you become a co-host simply by calling. How do you do that? Dial 215-634-8065, 215-634-8065, toll free, 866-361-0900. Once again, 866-361-0900. And by the way, you can catch us anytime, all the time, every time at WURDradio.com. That's WURDradio.com at WURD TV Live. And if you want to even see even more of Denzel Washington / Idris Elba / The Angriest Black Men in America, Michael X, all you got to do is catch us streaming at WURD Facebook Live, catch us streaming at WURD YouTube, catch us streaming at WURD Twitch. Now, as I said a couple times, I am an attorney, so I do a show here at WURD every Sunday from 11 a.m. to 1 p.m. And the show is called Radio Courtroom. And in that show, because I am a practicing attorney, I talk about legal stuff. That's my lane. That's my area of expertise, that and black history, whether it's black American history or ancient African history. But that's my lane. But specifically getting back to the legal stuff, I call my Sunday show the Radio Courtroom because I deal primarily with courtroom-related stuff, like criminal law and civil law, like family law and administrative law, like estates law and real estate law, like tax law and parking law, because that's what I do. But I don't stop there. I also talk about cultural stuff and political stuff and historical stuff and current events. But once again, it's all about you. The numbers are 215-634-8065, 215-634-8065. And I'd be happy to take your calls. By the way, let me give you the toll-free number as well. That's 866-361-0900. That's 866-361-0900. Now, I did say I had several things, well, not several, but 2 particular topics I wanted to get into. And let me just start off with the critical race theory. Then I'll get into Bill Cosby Case 101. Critical race theory is important because it explains how we got to where we are today in America. Now, critical race theory should not be controversial. You hear racist white Republicans saying that it's a horrible thing and it should not be taught in the schools and it's anti-white. They're wrong about everything. So I know you all got your pens out. I know you all got your pads out. So let me tell you what critical race theory is. And I'm going to make it plain. As you see next to me, I got my mentor, none other than Malcolm X. Malcolm X, for me, I mean, there have been great black men in America, great black women in America. But for me, the greatest is Malcolm X. And the reason why I say that is because he was like a ladder. And what I mean ladder is that whatever he did well, and then realized that he could do better, so he moved up. So whether he was a street criminal, he graduated to being a professional criminal. Then he went to prison, and he wasn't just a rookie inmate, he became an experienced inmate. And then he joined the Nation of Islam. And then for him, he found something else and became an Orthodox Muslim. So he never stopped where he was. That's the greatness of Malcolm. At one point, people thought, and maybe he did, hated Reverend Dr. Martin Luther King Jr., but after they met, after they talked, he began to open up more and move, I won't say toward Dr. King, because some people say Dr. King moved toward Malcolm, but whatever the case, Malcolm realized that, maybe I shouldn't call Dr. King a handkerchief-head Negro. Maybe I can work with him and we can move black people forward. So Malcolm changed. So the question is, what would Malcolm what would he have become if he had lived to be 99 years old? Because at every level in his life, he always went to the next level. He always took it higher. That's why I call him the personification of a cultural and intellectual ladder. He never stayed on the rung that he was on. He always moved a step up, then a step up. But while moving up, he remained his unapologetic black self. Never apologized for that. I got to tell you, I appreciate and respect the man for that. Having said that, and those of you on the radio who wonder why I pause like that, is because I just got a sip of water from my beautiful Cheney University class of 1982 mug. So while I was drinking it, I was also looking at it. The reason why I mentioned Malcolm is because Malcolm said, make it plain. And what Brother Malcolm meant by make it plain is like whatever you talk about, it could be some esoteric, cultural, historical stuff. It could be some complex legal stuff, or whatever it is, make it plain. Don't try to impress people with how smart you are, but communicate on their level. Make it plain. So that's what I'm going to do when I talk about this critical race theory thing. Before I tell you what critical race theory is, and again, folks, I wasn't joking when I said I want you to get your pens out and get your pads out, because this is important stuff. You need to be armed with information when you argue with racists, so you can shoot them down if you want to. Now, for me, I don't argue with the racist. Not because I won't crush them in a debate, I certainly will, but they mean nothing to me. I mean, they mean absolutely nothing to me. They don't count. I don't give them the respect or the dignity of a response. It's as simple as that. You know, it's like I might be a Hall of Fame NBA basketball superstar, and you got cut from some elementary school JV team, and you challenge me about how I handle the ball. I'm like, but I'm a Hall of Fame NBA superstar. You got cut from your elementary school junior varsity team. Man, I'm not even responding to you. That's how I am with white people. I don't answer their questions because I don't have to. I am arrogant when it comes to dealing with white folks. I don't dealing with racist white folks. I'm like, my parents had to answer your questions. My grandparents, certainly my great-grandparents, but because of the sacrifices they made in getting me into good schools and raising my consciousness, damn it, I don't have to explain anything to you. I could crush you in a debate if I wanted to, just like that NBA Hall of Famer could crush that kid who got cut from his or her elementary school JV, but that NBA superstar says, why? That's beneath me. Racist white folks are beneath me intellectually. I don't waste my time debating with them. They don't deserve that. But having said that, we're going to get to callers in just a second. Let me just talk quickly about the first part of critical race theory. And again, Brother Malcolm said, make it plain. I'm listening, so I'm going to make it plain. Malcolm X said to Michael, let's make it plain. So here's what Brother Malcolm told me to say about critical race theory. He told me to first start by saying what it's not before I tell you what it is. What it's not is, critical race theory is not Black Lives Matter. It's not reparations. It's not defunding or defanging the police. And by the way, it's not taught and was never taught in preschools or elementary schools or middle schools or junior high schools or high schools. Critical race theory is basically a law school thing, and in certain instances, a college thing. But it's never been about the public school system. So when you hear racist white folks saying, oh, they got this anti-white thing and they're going to brainwash our white kids in these elementary schools, no, that is not what it does, and that's never what it did. Never. In fact, as I said, critical race theory is pretty much and almost exclusively, with the exception of some undergraduate college courses, like for me, for example, here I am, a lawyer. So I can teach it to college students, many of whom probably want to go to law school. But as I said, it's not about preschools. It's not about elementary schools. It's not about middle schools. It's not about junior high schools. And it's not about high schools. It's a law school thing. In fact, critical race theory, what it does is it examines legal issues as those legal issues pertain to race and racism. Simple as that. So if somebody asks you what's critical race theory, you say, well, critical race theory is an approach. And what it does is it looks at legal issues as those legal issues pertain to race and racism. In fact, critical race theory came into existence about 50 years ago. It didn't even have a name. A great black law school professor, Derek Bell, who taught at Harvard Law School, who taught at New York University Law School, he came up with this concept of critical race theory. And then there were several other law school professors all across the country who developed critical race theory, including Columbia Law School professor Kimberly Crenshaw. In fact, it was Columbia Law School professor Kimberly Crenshaw who gave Derek Bell's concept a name. Like I said, he came up with it about 50 years ago. And then later on, Columbia Law School professor Kimberly Crenshaw gave it a name. She called it, for the first time, critical race theory. Let me just read the names of some of the other law school professors who were involved in developing this critical race theory concept. University of Alabama Law School professor Richard Delgado, Buffalo Law School professor Alan Freeman, UCLA Law School professor Cheryl Harris. Want more? I got more. Georgetown University Law School professor Charles Lawrence III, University of Hawaii Law School professor Marie Matsuda, University of Wisconsin Law School and Columbia University Law School professor Patricia Williams. Remember those names that I gave you. None of those people taught in preschool or in elementary school or in middle school or in junior high school or in college. These were law school professors because it was designed for law students or for those who went to college who are interested in going to law school, interested in the law. So you got to understand that even the American Bar Association wrote about critical race theory. And what's the American Bar Association? That's the biggest group of lawyers in America today and in American history. And the American Bar Association explained that critical race theory is, quote, a practice of interrogating the role of race and racism in society, and critical race theory emerged in the legal academy, unquote, which means it emerged in law school. So let racist white folks know that you know what critical race theory is. You know first what it's not. It's not designed for public schools, so white kids ain't going to be affected by it. It's a law school thing, or in some cases, undergraduate, like I'm teaching at Temple University, for those who are interested in going to law school, interested in the legal concept. And when I say the legal concept, when I say interested in law, and when I say that critical race theory is based on the law in connection with race. Brother Malcolm has whispered me and said, Mike, that's cool, but make it a little plainer so people can really understand what you're talking about. Okay, Brother Malcolm, I'm going to freestyle now while you're talking to me. And by the way, in 30 seconds, we're going to take a commercial break. And then we come back from the break, we're going to talk to our callers. Brother Malcolm is saying, Mike, explain it this way. Critical race theory looks at race and racism from a legal perspective. Critical race theory looks at race and racism from a legal perspective, because race and racism, those are the policy of America. Policy is just your vibe, what you're trying to do. And from day one, for black folks in America, 1619 regarding slavery, from day one, the policy was for white folks to be brutally racist toward black folks. You want more? I got more. But first, a break. WURD 96.1 FM.
Are you an educator looking for a life-changing opportunity? Youth Build Philly Charter School might be the home for you. Apply to Youth Build to join a family of educators dedicated to learning and growing with young people. Check out current opportunities at youthbuildphilly.org or follow them on social media at YouthBuildPHL. Join Youth Build today. Youth Build is now accepting applications for the class of 2021.
So many times we say to ourselves, I need to make a difference. Well, your chance is here. Center in the Park is holding a virtual volunteer event Friday, August 6, 2021 from 11 a.m. to 1 p.m. Advocate for those who can't, support those who can, and ensure all long-term care residents live with dignity and respect. Register for this Ombudsman event at info@centerinthepark.org. We all feel better when we do something that matters and when we do something with purpose.
WURD TV. We're streaming live video of this conversation right now. Tune in on YouTube at onWURD or on Facebook at ForWord. WURD TV. Black Talk Media.
That is absolutely correct. This is Black Talk Media, and this is yours truly, attorney Michael Cord, a.k.a. Michael X, a.k.a. the angriest black man in America, sitting in for my good friend, the learned, the scholarly, the meticulous Charles Ellison, host of Reality Check. Charles Ellison could not be here today, was not here yesterday, and won't be here tomorrow because he's taking a well-deserved break. And at the same time, he's doing extensive research, as he always does. But he said, yo, Mike, I can't be in. I'm hoping that you can sit in for me. I said, Charles, say no more. Reached out to some judges, and here I am. Today from 10 a.m. until 1 p.m. In about 60 seconds, we're going to get to Malik and Mount Airy, but let me wrap up the first part of my talk about critical race theory. So remember what I said, actually what Brother Malcolm whispered in my ear. He said, Mike, you got to make it plainer. So what I said while listening to Malcolm is that critical race theory looks at race and racism from a legal perspective. Critical race theory looks at race and racism from a legal perspective. And it goes like this. Policy is what a legislative body wants to do. Like, for example, they might want to raise wages for workers. They might want to allow free education for certain students, or might want to put a whole bunch of people in jail. In other words, a policy is your goal, what you want to do, whether it's good or bad, but a policy is your goal. The law is the muscle behind that goal. So let's say you want to be a misogynistic thug and you want to take away a woman's right to choose. You know, people call it women's rights, they call it abortion rights, but it's really a matter of human rights. I mean, the idea that somebody could tell any human being what he or she or they can do with their own body is a frightening concept. So let's use the example of quote-unquote abortion rights. Well, there are some people, for religious reasons or political reasons, who want to take away a woman's right to choose. So that's their goal. That's their policy, to take away a woman's right to choose. But they can't make it happen by just wanting it. They got to implement it. And how do you implement it? You implement it through the law. So the policy is the thought, and the law is the action. The policy is the brain, the law is the brawn. The policy is the head, and the law is the muscle. You got it? Okay. So what do I mean by all that? And in 30 seconds, we're going to get to our first caller, so I'm just going to touch on a few things. When I say the law, what am I talking about? Well, for black people, law begins on August 25, 1619, with the slave codes at Point Comfort in the colony of Virginia. I can talk more about that later. So for black people, our first introduction to America through the British colonies, our first introduction is through the law. The law called the slave codes in 1619. The policy of enslaving black people, all tied into slavery and indentured servitude, but I'll get to that later. But it was all based on laws, either laws coming out of Great Britain or laws by the colonies. And it's all the same thing because the colonies were part of Great Britain. So the introduction of black people to the American legal system was through its racist laws. That's what critical race theory talks about. Let's fast forward to 1640, where there was this whole thing called indentured servitude. It's complicated, but I'll make it quick and I'll make it short so we can get to our first, second, third, fourth callers. Indentured servitude and slavery, many people say were similar, but they weren't. The difference is slavery was bondage for life. Indentured servitude was bondage for a contractual period. So Michael X would say to Joe Blow, hey, I agree to work for you for 5 years. And during that 5 years, I got to do whatever you tell me to, and I can't leave. I'm locked into that. Okay, that's indentured servitude. So surprisingly, not all the black people in early America were enslaved. Some were indentured servants. And we'll talk more about that later. Let me just say what happened in 1640. Remember what I'm talking about, critical race theory. It's all about the laws and racism. That's why it's primarily a law school thing. That's why it was law professors that envisioned it and developed it. So anyway, in 1640, Virginia's General Court of the Governor's Council, that's the formal title. It's like a regular court, but it's called the Virginia's Court of the Governor's Council. On July 9 in 1640, there were 3 indentured servants. Remember I told you that when you have this contract, you agree to work for somebody for 5 years, 10 years, whatever, and you can't leave. Well, there were 3 men who were indentured servants, but they fled. They broke their contract. They said, man, I don't want to work for this guy anymore, and they left. And that was a violation not only of the contract, but it's a violation of the law at the time. So when the courts got the 3 men, they said, hey, you 2 white guys, you breached your contract under indentured servitude. So we're going to add 4 more years to your period of servitude. And you won't get paid for those extra 4 years, but that's the punishment for you breaking the previous contract. That's for you 2 white indentured servants. But you black guy by the name of John Punch, Google it. They said John Punch, this is a direct quote from the court. John Punch is, quote, to be sentenced to serve his said master for the time of his natural life. So the 2 white guys get a 4-year sentence. The black guy gets a life sentence. That's critical race theory. That's Virginia's General Court of the Governor's Council. That's July 9, 1640. Don't tell me that critical race theory is something that should not be taught. It should be taught everywhere. Having said that, let's go to the phone lines. Those who are trying to get in, the numbers are 215-634-8065, 215-634-8065, toll free 866-361-0900, 866-361-0900. First up, from Mount Airy is Malik. Malik, how can we help you, or how can you help us?
First and foremost, once again, I want to say thank you to a brother for fighting a good fight for those who can't stand up and sweat out.
I appreciate you saying that. Thank you very much.
Here's how I see the critical race theory. I just don't even see it as, I was saying, I don't think it exists because all you.
Well, let me stop. You know, I want to understand what you mean by that, because it does exist, because Derek Bell, who created it, said it exists. It does exist because law school professor Kimberly Crenshaw named it. And it does exist because of what I just did. I broke down what happened with the beginning of that legal system against black folks, and I'm going to go through the future. But that's just my position about why it exists, because it is a thing. But I want to know what your reason is for saying it does not exist.
When I say it does not exist, in the sense of all you're really doing is telling the truth about the ugly history of this country. So, and the sad part about it is, every single time we've talked about the struggle that we go through, we got to sugarcoat it for our oppressors, even though they never sugarcoated slavery, they never sugarcoated Jim Crow, they never sugarcoated oppression, they never sugarcoated segregation. It just was. From the Supreme Court all the way down to the local governments, which, you know, if anybody understands how law is actually goes, it's always local, state, federal. So that being said, that's just the history of this country. And the sad part about it is the congressmen from all the way up to the Supreme Court are saying, we don't want y'all to tell the truth. We want y'all to sugarcoat it or put it back in a book so nobody else can know about it. Because the sad part about it is the more people know about it, and I'm glad a brother like you was going to say, I don't care if you don't like it. You're going to learn about it either way. But at the end of the day, all you really doing, brother, is telling these people this is what's happened. Whether you like it or not, these are the laws that have been set in place to, as you said, the brother Punch. You telling him, I make an error and I'm going to be someone's worker for free for the rest of my natural life. Imagine that psychosis, that for a judge to say that you are going to be someone's worker for free for the rest of your natural life. So that actually set in place what slavery would be for the rest of eternity until someone said, you know what, we got to stop this. And the sad part about it is that's why I say I'm not saying it's not pertinent. I'm not saying it's not important. But at the end of the day, all you're doing is telling the truth about the ugliness of this country and the laws that have been set in place against us. And it started when they started the Constitution. 3/4 human means I'm not even human. And it's been going on ever since. So every branch of the law has been effectively put in place to either dehumanize us, take away our rights, or make us fight harder than anybody else has ever had to fight. And again, I'm not saying that you're wrong here. I'm just saying that you can't. It's just a sweet way of saying this is the truth about this country. Critical race theory is literally truth about your United States of America. I thank you. Have a good day.
Malik from Mount Airy, thank you very much for the call. We appreciate you not only listening, but more importantly, we appreciate you calling and giving thoughtful commentary. That's exactly why I say that folks who call in to WRD are not just callers, they are co-hosts. You heard that wealth of information presented to us by Malik from Mount Airy. You want to be like Malik from Mount Airy? Give us a call. The numbers are 215-634-8065, 215-634-8065, toll free 866-361-0900, 866-361-0900. I'm glad Malik made the point that he made, and I just wanted to clarify so that folks wouldn't misunderstand what he was saying. Initially, I misunderstood when he said it doesn't exist, but as he explained it, I certainly understand it. And even though I understand it, but we still have to give it a name. It's like, for example, we know that the history of Africans on the motherland is world history. But if we call it a world history class, people like me won't know that they're focusing on Africa, and we might not take it. Or if we just call it history, we might think it's American history and find out that it's really Chinese history. So for every course, we got to give the course a name. So the esteemed Derek Bell and then ultimately Professor Crenshaw, Kimberly Crenshaw, said, hey, let's call it critical race theory. And if you think about it, that makes sense because critical means to look at something analytically and question it. That's the critical part. That's the critique. And race, even though all those persons I mentioned, they understand that race doesn't really exist. Race is actually a social construct based on how people physically look, like based on their hair or based on their complexion. Well, you got some Italians from Italy that are darker than me. You got some Latinos that are darker than me. You got some black folks that are lighter than Italians. You got some black folks who are lighter than Latinos. Or I should say Latinx. So it's really not about hair texture. It's really not about skin. As I said, race is a social construct. But the reason why those folks use that is because you got to use a name that people are familiar with. If you called it, for example, critical political theory, people wouldn't understand that it's based on what people understand race to be. So you got to use that word race so that people understand what it is. And then when you bring them in, you'll break it down. And theory is something that I must admit, I have a little bone to pick with the esteemed law school professor Derek Bell and all the other folks. I don't think they should have called it theory, because theory is something that is unproven. There's been extensive research done on that thing, but it hasn't been proven. We know that 1 + 1 = 2. That's not a theory because we take one thing, we add another thing, we count those things, and then those things together equal two. So that's not a theory. Well, for me, critical race theory is actually critical race fact. When I just told you about 1619, that's a fact. When I told you about John Punch in 1640, that's a fact. So I'm not sure why Professor Derek Bell and Professor Kimberly Crenshaw and the rest of them, well, actually, Professor Bell didn't even have a name for it. But it wasn't until Columbia Law School Professor Kimberly Crenshaw, she actually coined it, critical race theory. And my thing is this, and I told you earlier I stay in my lane, I know that law school professor Kimberly Crenshaw knows what the hell she's talking about. So when she added theory at the end, she did it for a reason. She didn't just throw it in as an afterthought. She did it for a reason, because maybe she wants to say, hey, let's present it first as a theory and then discuss it and debate it. So I defer to the esteemed Columbia Law School Professor Kimberly Crenshaw. If she's calling it critical race theory, then damn it, I'm calling it critical race theory. And you know, it obviously makes sense, because even the great intellectual Albert Einstein, he came up with something called the theory of relativity. And that's really not a theory. It's a fact. E equals MC squared. Now, I stay in my lane, so I don't really know what that means, but every science class I took in college, every biology class I took in college, all those professors saying, yeah, E equals MC squared. And Albert Einstein came up with that. And that, to me, is a fact. So why they call that the theory of relativity as opposed to the fact of relativity, I don't know. But I will say this. If the great minds that I mentioned from those law schools, if they call it critical race theory, then I'm calling it critical race theory. Folks, got to take a quick commercial break, actually about a minute early for the break, but let's get it in because I got some callers I want to get to. So we'll do the break a little bit early. We'll come back and talk to all the folks who have lined up to get in. First a break, WURD 96.1 FM.
At Bank of America, we're helping to meet the need for more affordable housing through community development banking.
I'm Jim Dever, President of Bank of America, Greater Philadelphia. My teammates and I are deepening our commitment to help meet the affordable housing need. Here in Greater Philadelphia, we're also collaborating with Habitat for Humanity Philadelphia to expand options for more people. What would you like the power to do?
Bank of America N.A., member FDIC, equal housing lender.
Hi, this is Samantha from Leo's Apparel on Germantown and Lehigh Ave. Open from 9:30 to 5:30, Monday through Saturday. We have the hottest selection of boys' dress suits and casual sportswear for boys, sizes 2T to 20. Men, let me tell you, we got in a large shipment of straws from Stetson. We have new linen and dress suits. Biggest selection of Stacey Adams shoes. Get an extra WURD 10% discount.
WURD TV. We're streaming live video of this conversation right now. Tune in on YouTube at onWURD or on Facebook at WURD. WURD TV. Black Talk Media.
The man is right. This is Black Talk Media. This is yours truly, attorney Michael Cord, a.k.a. Michael X, a.k.a. the angriest black man in America, sitting in for my good friend, the learned and the meticulous Charles Ellison, host of Reality Check. Those of you who want to join in, please do so, just like our next caller, my good friend, Germantown Joe. Let's turn it over to Joe. How are you today?
I'm doing fine, Brother Mike. How you doing, Mike?
No complaints, man. Fighting the good fights, winning most of them.
I know that. Happy hello to your wonderful producer, Brother Troy, who I refer to as affectionately as number 21.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Well said.
Yeah, Brother Mike, before I talk about Bill Cosby, I just want to mention about the thing with about the color thing. You make a good point, Mike, on the color thing, because I have a picture, and I've shared this with people over the years. It's a picture of his sister. She's Palestinian. She's holding a picture of the late great Yasser Arafat, PLO chairman. And if you saw this sister's picture, Mike, you would think that she was a sister of even though she's real dark skin, coarse hair, but she's 100% Palestinian. And I bring this up, Brother Mike, because this is why the white media don't take it. This is why you see a lot of racism. They show our Palestinian brothers, and they usually show the lighter skinned ones. Some blacks, I love them as well, because I've met many of them. But they never show you the real darker skinned Palestinians. They look just like you and me walking down the street. Like they got
not only that, Joe, not only do many of us look like us, they got our back. When Nelson Mandela needed support against the racists to combat apartheid, who did he have to fight against outside of South Africa? Israel. Israel gave more weapons to the apartheid government than any country on the planet. But who had Mandela's back? Yasser Arafat and the PLO. Go ahead, Joe.
But see, Brother Mike, let me say this to you, my dear brother and friend. See, by you making that statement, Mike, you can be called anti-Semitic. You know, we don't see, Mike. Let me say this to you carefully.
And I ain't scared.
And I appreciate you, Mike, because let me tell you something about me, Mike. When people try to call me that, Mike, and I talk to Stallman, I know I'm not anti-anyone, because I love.
And by the way, Joe, I want you to make your point, but even that phrase anti-Semitic, that doesn't apply specifically to the Israelis. If you dislike the Palestinians, you're anti-Semitic because it's the Semitic region where the people live. The Palestinians are Semites.
But see, the thing is, brother Mike, that's why people stay in a condition, because we don't know this. The average person, even called WRD, they don't know that what you just said as a fact. They heard some of these so-called white Jews are anti-Semitic, and they run with that, Mike. They understand that when you talk about Semitic, you talking about Palestinian people as well. You know what I mean?
Yes.
And this is why our people stand. But remember, Mike, what gets me, Mike, is that it seems like whenever a black person, whether it be especially somebody black male, there always got to be a litmus test. Like this brother that just ran for mayor of New York, became the Democratic elect. They asked him, the Jewish press asked him, do you denounce Louis Farrakhan? I'm saying, what the heck do they got to do with mayor of New York? And then they asked him, are you going to be an advocate for the state of Israel? Excuse me, didn't he just got elected to be the mayor of New York City? I mean, this is, like, I'm not saying anything that can't be validated, man. I'm saying, why is it that black boys got to do this litmus test, whether it's Farrakhan, whether it's the state? I'm like, dude, like for example, Mike, if you ran for office right now, Mike, and you became a city councilman, Mike, I would expect you to represent your district or councilman at large. I don't want to hear you on the radio telling me some bumbly advocating for Israel. Because, Mike, you didn't get elected by Israel. You got elected by our people, the people of Philadelphia. I'm not saying you can't do business with them, or you can't like them, or you can't whatever. But the point is that you should be advocating for them. They're a foreign nation. You got elected in the United States of America, man. This madness is crazy. But again, Mike, just your statement alone, when you said about how they gave weapons to the apartheid system, you can be called anti-Semitic for bringing that. And Mike, let me say this one, and I move on to Bill Cosby. Mike, when you talk about violence, right, Mike? You know, and again, people, we all as people, Mike, got bad people in our. We got people that do things bad. You know what I mean? When I say bad, you know, killings and all that. But my point is that, Mike, nobody points out about. Everybody talking about the Italian mafia, right? Mike, all the gangsters in South Philadelphia, the Malinos and all these people. But see, nobody talk about the Detroit. They talk about Al Capone, but nobody brings up the Detroit Purple Gang. And let me refresh the audience. The Detroit Purple Gang was a group of white Jewish gangsters. They were so violent, and what they did, Mike, they made Al Capone look like choir boys. They was violent. I mean, they would kill you just at the blink of an eye. These was white Jewish gangsters. See, you can't bring this up because you get called an anti-Semite and stuff. Mike, I man up to bring up about the so-called Southern Black Mafia. And them brothers did but they did some bad things too. I'm man up to say that, Mike. I don't hide what our people do. But you as a black, you can't bring
and
up
because you mentioned the Black Mafia doesn't make you anti-black.
Exactly, brother Mike. But you can't bring up the Detroit Purple Gang, who was white Jewish gangsters that murdered people at the drop. But they were so bad, they was nicknamed Murder Incorporated. That's how much they would murder people, man. These people were thugs, man. They was white Jewish thugs.
Meyer Lansky and the rest of them.
Exactly. And last point, Mike, on Bill Cosby, real quick, on my place time, Mike. See, one thing I say about Mike, people have a right to judge Bill Cosby any way they want to, but my only problem, Mike, is that, again, Bill Cosby is a flawed human being. He did some good things in the black. He did some bad. I didn't agree with his pound cake speech. It's not to say that stuff he said wasn't true in there, but it's the way he said it. But my whole thing, Mike, it seems that we as a people, Mike, now Joe Biden, many of us voted for Joe Biden in this past election. We saw what the alternative was, right? Now, Joe Biden has said some horrible things about black people, called us predators, said the crime bill, but yet we still voted for him. But yet, many of us in our heart will never forgive Bill Cosby for the pound cake speech or his alleged sexual misdeeds. But my sentence of Marv Albert, who happened to be a white Jewish sportscaster, this man not only assaulted women, he left bite marks on women, but he's still on NBC making money, doing everything. White folks is allowed to go on with their life. Why isn't Bill Cosby or O.J. allowed to go on with their life? These white folks like Mark Albert, even you're going to get the president, Donald Trump. He bragged that how he bragged women about it,
That's a great
name,
point. And they still voted for him. 52% of white women still voted for Dump after he said what he would do.
That's what I'm saying, Mike. They still voted for Donald Trump, but yet Bill Cosby is not allowed to go. And again, I'm not saying you have to love Bill Cosby, but let the man go on with his life. And I will say this, Mike, in closing, Bill Cosby needs to make amends to the black. He needs to put his money where his money. He said that he's going to advocate for black men because he said he met a lot of brothers in prison that was up there unjust. And he said he needs to do that. I'm going to hold Bill Cosby to it. When Bill Cosby starts doing things like that, I think he should be able to redeem himself in the black community because nobody's perfect. He made mistakes, and I didn't like the tone of that pound cake speech, but I know personally he did for a friend of mine. He helped a brother friend of mine help start his business out of his own pocket. So he did some good. He's not a perfect man by no means, but again, he should be allowed to go on with his life just like the white boys when they come out of jail or whatever they go to jail. That is. Look over in Jersey how that boy Mount Laurel was harassing black people for so many, and they finally locked us behind.
Yes.
N-word. So this white, even Solomon said that this white boy get away with stuff for years. But that's all I'm saying, Mike. You got to look at Bill Cosby in his totality. I mean, you can be critical of him. You can be, hold him accountable. But again, give the man the same rate. Let him go on with his life the remaining years he has, just like you do, like you do Woody Allen. Now, this man was accused of raping his own stepdaughter, but nobody holds Woody Allen to a different standard. I mean, come on, man. That's all I'm saying, Mike. I ain't gonna hold your line. I'm done. I'm done, Mike.
Germantown Joe brings the heat every time, all the time. Much appreciated. But we're not going to stop there. Let's get things moving. And we'll get things moving by talking to Olaniyan in Nicetown. Olaniyan, how can we help you? How can you help us?
I believe we or you can help everybody because the main reason why I'm calling is because I figured to take some of my time, which is worth money, to read a book on critical race theory. And I'd like you to tell us what book should we read. But before I get there, let me go through some of the things I want to talk about. You mentioned something about black people being in Europe or Italy, and that's true. We were the first Italians. We were the Grimaldi people there. And you also spoke about E equals MC squared, which is a theory by Einstein. And some people are still trying to challenge him on that today. But yes, energy does equal mass times the speed of light times the speed of light. I want to get back to that issue of what book I should read on critical race theory. Is critical race theory something that teaches us that investing? This is a question. Does it teach us that investing in stocks is racist? Someone told me that it teaches also that we should learn communism by Karl Marx and the other guy. Is that what critical race theory carries?
Well, I'm glad you asked all those questions, and let me answer the second one first. No, it does not involve any of those things. It's about race, and it's about the law. As I was going through my list, I pointed out that in regard to black people here in America, we start with 1619 and the development of the slave codes. Those are laws to hold black people in bondage. And I talked about a Virginia Supreme Court decision involving 3 men, 2 white, 1 black. The 2 white men who did the same thing the black man did, they got 4 years. But the black man who did the very same thing the 2 white men did, he got a life sentence. So it's not about anything else other than race and the law. And the reason why I said I'm glad that you posed that question is because some people think that what you just asked about is a fact. They think that it does pertain to those other things. It does not. And if people want to know more about it, I wrote an article in the Tribune about 2-3 weeks ago, and on the cover, I should say the photo connected to the article, is a book entitled Critical Race Theory. So those who are listening, I know you got your pens and pads out. Let me give you the full title and the name. It's not really so much an author as it is editors. So the book is entitled Critical Race Theory, the Key Writings that Formed the Movement. The title, Critical Race Theory, the subtitle, the key writings that formed the movement. And it's edited by Kimberly Crenshaw. Law school professor Kimberly Crenshaw is the person that came up with the name critical race theory. In addition to Kimberly Crenshaw, one of the editors, there's Neil Gotanda, there's Gary Feller, there's at least 3 or 4 others. So I'm going to talk more about that later, but if folks want to try to find or order the book now, all you got to do is ask for the book entitled Critical Race Theory, subtitle, The Key Writings That Formed the Movement. And just put in the name Kimberly. By the way, Kimberly spells her name Kimberle. That's Kimberle, last name Crenshaw, and you'll find out everything you need to know. But bottom line, the first thing you need to know is that it's about race and the law, period. Olanian, we appreciate your call. Thank you very much. And those who want to be like Olanian, those who want to be like Germantown Joe, those who want to be like Malik, all you got to do is give us a call. The numbers are 215-634-8065, 215-634-8065, toll free, 866-361-0900. Once again, 866-361-0900. When you keep things moving, and by the way, no disrespect to anybody, but I want to make sure that when people call in, I try to see if I recognize names. So if you haven't called or if I've never spoken to you at all, you get bumped to the front of the line. If you've only talked on shows that I've hosted maybe a few times, you'll be placed in the middle of the line. And if I talked to you yesterday or the day before, then I got to bump you to the back line. It's almost like me being an usher at a movie theater. I come outside the theater, I look at the people standing in line, I look at them and say, hey, this guy who's number 99 in the line, you've never seen this movie before, so I take him out of spot 99 and put him in the front. And I got persons 1 and 2 who've seen the film several times. In fact, they saw it yesterday. So I'm like, no disrespect, but I got to take you to and put you in the back spot 99 and 100. So if folks are on hold for a while, I'm going to get to you, but I do remember I spoke to you the day before or 2 days before. So I'm going to try to get in people who haven't gotten a chance to get in, because when I'm out in the public, people say, hey, Mike, I love the shows that you're on, but you know, I hear the same people all the time, or every time I call, I can't get in, it's busy. So I want to try to get in the first-time callers, definitely, and the infrequent callers, secondarily. The numbers are 215-634-8065, 215-634-8065, toll-free, 866-361-0900. Once again, 866-361-0900. In about a minute or two, we're going to take another commercial break, and I just want folks to know that in regard to the Bill Cosby case, you heard Germantown Joe, and I got to tell you, Germantown Joe is a soldier when it comes for Bill Cosby. I must admit that I'm not as strong of a supporter. In fact, I'm not a supporter of Bill Cosby. And Germantown Joe kind of stole my thunder because he talked about that pound cake speech. And just so folks know what Joe and I were talking about, back on May 17 of 2004, Bill Cosby did something called the pound cake speech. And in this pound cake speech, he pretty much ridiculed and demeaned poor black people from the hood. He said, quote, those people have names like Shaniqua, Shaligwa, Muhammad, and all that crap, and all of them are in jail, unquote. That's what he said. Like, Bill, I'm not feeling you on that. I'm just not feeling you on that, man. Like, why are you demeaning? You a multimillionaire. You might have even been a billionaire. Why are you doing that? Well, I'm going to talk more about that and other stuff. First to break, WURD 96.1 FM.
Star Fusion Express is Philly's first choice when cravings for big, juicy burgers, crispy chicken sandwiches, delicious wings, crisp salads, creamy mac and cheese, innovative spring rolls, and delectable fresh seafood kicks in. Did you hear that? Star Fusion Express at 5178 Parkside Avenue in West Philly is your go-to for fresh, flavorful, homemade deliciousness 7 days a week. Learn more and check out the menu at starfusionrestaurant.com. That's starfusionrestaurant.com. For the best burgers, chicken sandwiches, wings, salads, spring rolls, and fresh seafood creations in Philly's Parkside neighborhood, holla!
Join WURD for our second annual Neighborhood Love Tour. This year we celebrate West Oak Lane, Mantua, North, West, and South Philly. I'm Tiffany Bacon. I'm going to broadcast live from a different neighborhood each Friday from 10 a.m. until 12 noon. The tour kicks off on Friday, July 16th at the Cobbs Creek Recreation Center, 2800 Cobbs Creek Parkway. Enjoy live performances, meet special guests, and stand with WURD. Be a part of the movement to amplify the voice of the Black community. Show your support and join or renew your 4WURD membership on site. That's the Neighborhood Love Tour beginning Friday, July 16th at the Cobbs Creek Recreation Center from 10 a.m. to 12 noon. WURD, showing love this summer.
The WURD Radio Neighborhood Love Tour is sponsored by Comcast and supported by Pico, Keystone First, and Ready Set Philly.
Morning, Mama. How you feeling?
Great, and I'm ready for you today.
I'm checking in on you. Morning meditation?
Check.
Dressed and ready to work out?
Check.
Check your blood pressure yet?
And check.
Boom! Great job, Mom. And about those gold earrings?
No, ma'am.
Now more than ever, it's important that we protect our hearts and the hearts of those we love. Monitor your blood pressure daily and help each other stay motivated. Rally your squad to take the online pledge at releasethepressure.org. Brought to you by the Release the Pressure Coalition and the Ad Council.
This is WURD Radio, 96.1 FM and 900 AM WURD Philadelphia. Black Talk Media, WURD TV. We're streaming live video of this conversation right now. Tune in on YouTube at onWURD or on Facebook at 4WURD. WURD TV. Black Talk Media.
That is correct. This is Black Talk Media, and this is yours truly, attorney Michael Cord, a.k.a. Michael X, a.k.a. the angriest black man in America, sitting in for my good friend, Charles Ellison, host of Reality Check. Those of you who want to get in, please do so. We got Tyrone on the line. Let's quickly go to him. Tyrone, how can we help you, or how can you help us?
Well, peace and blessings, good brother. How's my brother X today?
I'm doing very well, fighting the good fights, winning most of them.
And I appreciate that, and yes, you are. And much love and respect to my WURD family. You know, Brother X, I try not to call back to back, but today I had to because, one, I really, really want to thank you for allowing me to share, you know, my sentiments on my, you know, the killing of my nephew. And also, you know, Brother Solomon, you know, was talking about the potential that he sees in the young folks. So with that and that, I just had to get back on the line, man, and just say again, you know, our young folks are so sharp and so powerful. They're brilliant, they're creative, and I believe, this isn't just me, I really believe that the reason they are living through what they are living, because folks do not want to see them actualize their potential. That's my belief. And then in terms of the critical race theory, brother, I'm sorry. Did I say theory? Was that the right word?
Yeah, theory is right. Yes, it's critical race theory.
Okay. I'm going to go with my sister. You know, Mother said when I called about it that I think that white folks just do not want to expose how barbaric, how sinister, how demonic they were in terms of how they treated us. And that's one of the things that they put in front of it, that, oh, I don't want my children to have to relive what we did to people. And then the other thing she said to me, because that was my coming at her, but she came at me.
And Tyrone, we got about 30 seconds, but go ahead.
I'm ending it on this. She said that it's more so they don't want us to understand the laws and how the laws put us in this bind that we find and see ourselves in. So thank you, my brother, for allowing me to share that. And I'm definitely going to see if I can take the course, because definitely want to be a part of that discussion.
Tyrone, thank you very much. And we also want to thank the other callers of today's show, Olanian and Joe and Malik and everybody else who called us at WURD 96.1 FM and WURD 900 AM. By the way, those who want to see us, in addition to hearing us, you can catch us streaming on WURD Facebook Live, WURD YouTube, and WURD Twitch. By the way, you can see and hear us all the time, every time on our website at WURDradio.com. Once you go to that website, check us out at WURD TV Live. As you know, we not only have callers calling in to enlighten us with whatever is on their mind, but we also have guests. And I got to tell you, this guest is a person who I feel like I've known for so long because we are kindred spirits when it comes to a man by the name of Frank Wills. But before we get into Frank Wills, let me just tell you who our guest is. His name is Adam Hennig, and to say that he's an author is an understatement. Yes, he's written 3 books, but they are profound books. One of those books we're going to talk about today, Watch Watergate's Forgotten Hero, Frank Wills, Night Watchman. And it's so important that we remember that name. You know, everybody knows what Watergate is. In fact, every time there's a big controversy of sorts, people add a gate at the end of it. Well, that's a result of some great, I'll call it, detective work by Frank Wills. And as our guest, Adam Hennig, says, Watergate's Forgotten Hero. That's the best description of Frank Wills. But in terms of the other books that Adam has written, they include Alex Haley's Roots, An Author's Odyssey. That's back in 2014. And another reason I say that Adam and I are kindred spirit, people who know me know that I love baseball. In particular, they know that I love black baseball. And that tomorrow, July 14, my show will be dedicated to Negro Leagues baseball, because in connection with Negro Leagues baseball, that day of July 14 is a very, very important date. And I'm going to talk a little bit about that later as Adam and I get into our discussion. The book he wrote is entitled Baseball Under Siege, The Yankees, the Cardinals, and the Doctors' Battle to Integrate Spring Training. In addition to him being a prolific author, he's also written in a number of publications, including Time and Detroit Metro Time and Detroit Metro Times, as well as Tampa Bay Times, as well as Washington Independent Review of Books, San Francisco Book Review, along with websites including History News Network and Black Past. Without further ado, my friend and hopefully yours, Adam Hennig. Adam, how are you today?
I'm doing very well, and thank you for the very kind introduction.
And it was all true. I mean, everything I said about you is true. I want to jump right into the book, Watergate's Forgotten Hero, Frank Wills, Night Watchman. I got to tell you, Adam, I've written at least maybe 2 or 3 columns about Frank Wills, and I do it either on the anniversary of the Watergate break-in or on Frank Wills' birthday. And even though I've done a lot of research, even though I've written 3 articles, man, I wish I had known you, because I would have just plagiarized everything that you put together and taken credit for it, because you have in your book 201 pages of the most meticulous research on any single topic I've ever had the great pleasure of experiencing. I mean footnotes. I mean bibliography. I mean index. It's like the encyclopedia of Frank Wills. So, Adam, I'm going to turn it over to you. For folks who have no idea who Frank Wills is and no idea what he did, just start at the beginning. Tell us why he's so important. Tell us why he's Watergate's forgotten hero.
Well, you know, the other day I was thinking that we've gotten to a point where if you are 60 years or younger, you probably didn't live through or at least remember Watergate. And by that nature, you probably don't remember who Frank Wills is. So Frank Wills was a 24-year-old security guard who was a night watchman. He was working the graveyard shift on the morning of June 17th, 1972. And he was living in D.C., and he didn't have a high school education. He had no true career path. In fact, he had really just fallen by accident into the private security industry, which we now think of as a multi-billion-dollar industry. But 50 years ago, it was still relatively new, and he was on the forefront of it. Anyways, that morning, as he was reporting to his shift, and he had only been working there for about 6 weeks, he had a routine that he would conduct on every shift. He would go down to the basement. He would go up the stairs. He was guarding an office building. And in the office building, he wanted to make sure that every door was locked, that there was no suspicious characters there, and then he would record it in a log, and then he would do the routine all over again. And this is basically, it's a very mundane job. He was by himself, and typically not much was going on, except that the Democrat National Committee had a whole floor there. And it was during the 1972 presidential contest. George McGovern was the candidate. And there had already been a reported break-in earlier when Wills had actually just begun. And so the committee had forewarned the building's management that, hey, you know, we noticed some typewriters were missing. We noticed some files were out of place. Can you please be alert about, you know, what's happening around our office? So Wills, of course, is knowledgeable about that, but still, you know, the expectation that anything amiss was really going to happen was quite rare. But on this particular morning, Wills, who is very shrewd, he's checking the doors, and he noticed that one of them doesn't latch on. And he starts looking into it. He turns the knob, and then he notices that there's cotton that's been stuffed into the latch, and that's why it's not locking. And it looks like someone did it intentionally. Now, a lot of times in these situations, people who are moving into offices, they're moving out of offices, it was very common that they would do something so that they wouldn't have to constantly pull out their key and unlock the door and then lock it back up. So it wasn't totally unusual that something like this would happen, but nevertheless, you know, he removed it and then went on his way. But then he checks it later on that morning, and he notices someone reapplied it. And that's when he knew that someone else was in the building. And so he calls the police, and the rest, as we say, is history.
And I'm so glad you broke it down the way you did. And let's go back a little bit. In regard to Frank Wills, did he have any training in law enforcement and investigative techniques, or was this just a second nature for him?
You know, so the first time he became a security guard was in Detroit. He had been working in the automobile industry, in the factories, and he hated it. It was just not it was just not in the cards for him. He was working on the factory line, just as you can imagine, and he just found it to be terribly mundane. And anyway, so a friend of his had recommended that, you know, there's a department store, they're looking for a security guard, you know, why don't you try it? You know, you're tall, you could be intimidating, which really he wasn't. He was very soft-spoken, and he seemed like he was a very kind person. But anyway, so Frank Wills gets this job, and apparently he likes it. He seems to, you know, there seems to be a lot of job opportunities in this new emerging industry that I was describing earlier. But from the research that I was able to do, it doesn't look like private security guards, especially then, were trained at all. Some of them may have had previous military experience. Some of them may have been, you know, quasi, you know, police officers, you know, for a short term. But most of them received very little training, if any at all. Sometimes it was literally just on the very first day they would get a 1-hour tutorial about what they needed to do, and that was it. They usually didn't have any weapons either. Frank Wills only had a can of mace on him. So I would assume that he was quite scared when he realized that he wasn't the only person in the building.
Now, in terms of, and I'm so glad you enlightened the listening audience for letting them know that he actually saw that door latch twice. In my research, and I haven't gotten through your book yet, and by the way, I got to thank you, Adam, for sending me that copy. I was supposed to be preparing for several trials, and don't tell my clients, but instead of going through their files, I was thumbing through your book because it was that great. I mean, that really impressive. Like I said, it's like a research paper, a scholarly writing. But is it true that, I don't know, the first time that Frank Wills approached that latch, or the second time, that he actually did it earlier than he was scheduled to do it? And the reason why I asked is because, and you're the expert, so
you're talking about.
In fact, just to let you know,
yeah.
And I want you to certainly respond to this because you're the expert, so I would defer to you. But in my research, what I have here is that as Frank Wills informed federal investigators, something he described as, quote, a sixth sense told him to go check that door 45 minutes sooner than he was assigned to. Now, I don't know if that's accurate. I would defer to you regarding that.
So what hadn't been really described before is I interviewed the last person who was with Frank Wills that morning before he discovered that there was a break-in. And this was an intern who was with the Democratic National Committee. And he was leaving that office shortly after Frank had finished his first round of checking the doors and checking the locks. And Frank Wills did not make any mention of this on his security logs, but he basically shut down the building and had a midnight snack with this guy. They had a burger and a milkshake.
Wow.
And about an hour passes before Frank decides, I need to go do another round of checks. So, it was a very mundane job, and he was a young guy, and that probably wasn't unusual, for people working that type of shift. But anyways, so he checked it when he was, I don't know what his exact schedule was. I've never seen it published or posted. But I imagine that he probably should have done it sooner than later. But nevertheless, he did do it. In fact, the irony is that because when he did it, they were already in the building. If he had done it sooner, he might have actually run into them. So it's kind of this irony that he went out and didn't do what he was supposed to do because of the timing. It all worked to the benefit of making sure that they were going to get caught.
Those of you who tuned in, you're listening to the voice of Adam Hennig, the author of several books, including the one we're talking about, Watergate's Forgotten Hero, Frank Wills, Night Watchman. And those who are checking us out on YouTube, on Facebook, on Twitch, I am holding the book up in front of the camera so you can see it. And I would encourage folks who really want to know about the history of Watergate, and in particular, Frank Wills, Night Watchman, you got to get a copy. I have a few more questions for you, Adam, but before I do that, how can folks get a copy of the book we're talking about and the book that I'm holding up in front of the camera? What's the best way, easiest way, fastest way to get a copy of the book?
Well, I hate to send people to Amazon, but that probably is the easiest and the quickest. But you can also go through the publisher's website. Publisher is called McFarland. Their website is McFarlandBooks.com. If you Google the title, and you'll find the links. For Amazon, some of the other sites, it says it's out of stock right now, and so I've been pushing the publisher to fill it. But I know Amazon has it. There's also the electronic copies. You can download it immediately. Again, at Amazon. You can also, if you have a Nook, Barnes and Nobles. I think it's on Apple Books. So,
it's funny, Adam.
Yeah.
I've never had the pleasure of meeting you personally, but in listening to you talk and reading what you've written, I'm just so impressed with you for reasons you probably not even aware of. When you just said what you said about, hey, I hate to send people to Amazon, I'm like, yeah, I knew I liked this guy, Adam, because Amazon is a monster, but I'm not even going to get into that. So, folks, if you can go to the publisher, McFarland's book, please do so. And I'm assuming it is available or will be available in small bookstores throughout the United States. I mean, I would encourage people to go to Harriet Books or Uncle Bobby's Books here in Philly, or Hakeem's Books, because we want to support small businesses. Let me ask you this. Adam, and this is important because I want to make sure I didn't engage in hyperbole or overstatement. In the most recent article I wrote about Frank Wills, here's what I wrote. I wrote that Frank Wills, quote, uncovered the biggest domestic political scandal and crime in American presidential history. Now, somebody might say that's hyperbole, and I'd say, well, ask Adam Hennig. He'll tell you. What's your position on that?
Well, I want to have let me have a disclaimer, two disclaimers. Number one is I'm not a presidential historian. So,
I got you. Okay.
But I will say, and the other disclaimer is, let's say the 20th century.
I got you.
Okay. That because we've had two presidents in the 21st century. I'm thinking of George W. Bush, the other, and of course Trump, who have actually had quite a number of people who were in the inside who obviously revealed some very sensitive information. But those were under different circumstances. I think in Frank Wills' case, it was very unique. It wasn't intentional. This wasn't calculated. He didn't have a plan. He didn't even know who these guys were. No one did at that time. They didn't know who the robbers were. The burglars, I'm sorry, who they were until they were escorted to the police station, and they realized that one of them is a former CIA officer. Yes. And that's when things started to unravel. And that's when Woodward and Bernstein, who are now household names, got onto the scene, and that's when the story takes off.
You know, I really appreciate, Adam, how meticulous you are. I have to say, when I made that statement about how Frank Wills uncovered the biggest domestic political scandal and crime in American presidential history, I did my lawyer kind of thing. I did my plausible deniability kind of thing, because I said scandal and crime. So I put that together, and by crime, I meant somebody was charged and convicted. So if somebody tried to call me on it, I could put my legal technicality hat on and explain it away. But I'm glad you broke it down the way you did. So let me ask you this, Adam. And again, folks who just tuned in, I'm talking with Adam Hennig. If you want to know about Frank Wills in connection with Watergate, you got to get this book entitled Watergate's Forgotten Hero, Frank Wills, Night Watchman. Here's what I have to ask you, Adam. Why is he forgotten? Why did someone who uncovered something so important, why didn't he go into fame and fortune? Take us through what happened after that. I mean, I don't want to let people know what my research has concluded, but I want you to tell us what yours. We would think that, hey, you did this great job. We know that you got recruited to some big-time police department. You became the director of the FBI. It had to have a happy ending. Tell us about it.
You know, Frank Wills is a product of his time. And let me start with this, because it explains what happens to him. You know, he was raised by a single mother. He didn't know who his father was. She was what we call back then a domestic. She was a housemaid, typically for a white, wealthy family. He was born in Savannah. He grew up in North Augusta, South Carolina. He was very poor. His mom wasn't educated. He never finished high school. He became a father before he was 18. And so he didn't have much of a support system. He didn't have any siblings. He did have some family nearby. But Frank had, I think, a lot of personal issues. And when he was thrusted into the spotlight accidentally and then intentionally, because he ends up hiring an agent, which I think backfired on him.
In fact, let's stop right there, because I want you to go into more detail about that, and I want you to tie in the whole Dick Gregory connection, because all of that stuff about the PR agent and Dick Gregory and all that, that's important in terms of what ultimately happened to Frank Wills. We got to take a quick commercial break, folks. Please keep your dial locked. We got to hear more from Adam Hennig, author of Watergate's Forgotten Hero, Frank Wills, Night Watchman. First to break, WURD 96.1 FM.
Hey, WURD family, did you hear? It's official. The Colorectal Cancer Alliance just announced the new age for colon cancer screenings has been officially lowered to age 45 for everyone. If you are 45 or older, it's time to get screened. Go to WURDradio.com and click on the Go to Know banner to register for your free at-home screening test. Did you know colon cancer is largely preventable with on-time screening? And there's a 90% survival rate when caught early. African Americans are 20% more likely to get colon cancer and about 40% more likely to die from it than most other groups. So for the next 3 months, you can go to WURDradio.com and click on the Go to Know banner for your free at-home screening test. A screening navigator will contact you to ask a few questions and help you get screened. It's that simple. Again, just go to WURDradio.com, click on the Go to Know banner, and fill out the form to request your free at-home screening test. Go to Know today.
The Black Words Book Club. WURD Radio's conversation on books that explore the African American experience through social, economic, and environmental justice issues. Tune in the second Tuesday of every month on Evening Words with Nick Taliaferro, 4 p.m. till 7 p.m. The Black Words book for July is White Evangelical Racism, The Politics of Morality in America by Penn's Dr. Anthea Butler. Be sure to listen live as Nick Taliaferro will hold a contest for a giveaway book bundle that consists of 4 titles from Kensington's Defina's Authors of Color's newest release. Don't miss it, Tuesday, July 13th on Evening Words with Nick Taliaferro. Attention 4WURD members. Get your copy and receive a 20% discount when you purchase at Harriet's Bookstore or Hakeem's Bookstore. For more information on the Black Words Book Club, visit WURDradio.com. The Black Words Book Club is sponsored by Defina. Defina is an imprint of Kensington Publishing Corporation, America's independent publisher, concentrating on authors of color. WURD TV. We're streaming live video of this conversation right now. Tune in on YouTube at onWURD or on Facebook at 4WURD. WURD TV. Black Talk Media.
That is correct, and this Black Talk Media is in the form of WURD 96.1 FM, WURD 900 AM. And by the way, you can catch us streaming on WURD Facebook Live, WURD YouTube, and WURD Twitch. By the way, if you want to check us out all the time, anytime, every time, go to our website, WURDradio.com, and see us at WURD TV Live. Folks, it's my honor to have Adam Hennig, author of Watergate's Forgotten Hero, Frank Will's Night Watchman. If you want to know everything and anything about Frank Wills and what he did in connection with Watergate, you gotta get this book. When I say get this book, there are a number of ways you can get it. You want to contact the publisher at McFarlandPub.com. That's McFarland Pub, PUB.com, McFarlandPub.com. Or locally here in Philly, I'm hoping it's available at these local Philadelphia bookstores. If it's not, ask the person at the bookstore and they'll be happy to order it. I'm talking about Hakeem's bookstore. I'm talking about Uncle Bobby's bookstore. I'm talking about Harriet's Bookshop. We're going to get back to Adam Hennig. And by the way, he's not just the author of this book we're talking about, Watergate's Forgotten Hero, Frank Will's Night Watchman, but also the author of Alex Haley's Roots, an Author's Odyssey. In addition, another book, Baseball Under Siege, the Yankees, the Cardinals, and the Doctor's Battle to Integrate Spring Training. But not just a prolific author in terms of books, but he writes so well. Publications like Time and Detroit Metro Times and Tampa Bay Times and Washington Independent Review of Books and San Francisco Book Review all have his work in it. You also find his stuff on websites, including History News Network and Black Pass. I'll call him a scholar in terms of Frank Wills. He will continue his commentary because before the commercial break, we talked about the hiring of a public relations agent. We talked about his connection to Dick Gregory. I'm going to turn it over to our expert, the expert, Adam Hennig. Adam, please continue.
Yeah. So anyway, so after Watergate, you know, he gets interviewed by all the major media outlets. He becomes kind of an American folk hero.
Was he telegenic? Yeah. Was he smooth? Was he composed?
Well, you know what? I'll let your audience make that call. There's a great video of him and an up-and-coming interviewer named Geraldo Rivera.
Whoa.
And it's on YouTube.
Okay.
Yeah. It's So Geraldo, before he became Geraldo as we know him now, he was a working television reporter, and he had some sort of night show that was very popular in the 70s, and one of his guests was Frank Wills. And Geraldo made all of these videos, not just the one with Frank Wills, but all of these other celebrities at the time, available for free on YouTube. And it's like a 8 or 9 minute video, and it's probably the most extensive clip I was able to find of Frank Wills. I mean, I have a lot of audio interviews, but I don't. It was the only one that was a television interview with him. So, so I highly recommend checking it out. I think given Frank's limitations, I think in terms of his education, you know, I think he speaks well. You know, he's got a Southern accent.
Excellent. Okay.
Yeah, but anyways, so Frank, you know, so he hires an agent, and I think once the agent takes over, he does get a lot more speaking opportunities and a lot more options to monetize his fame. But what I found was that it was, in the end, it was far and few. And aside from a few high-paying gigs, including playing himself in the movie, you know, All the President's Men with Dustin Hoffman and Robert Redford, that went on to win a number of Oscars. He really didn't do financially. He really didn't make out very well. You know, historically, African Americans, whether it's in sports, whether it's in film, they always got paid, or promotions, they always got paid less than their white counterparts. And it was no different with Frank Wills. And so what I was able to do was I took a calculated estimate of how much Frank probably received over the 5 years between the time of the break-in and when basically he had his last speaking engagement. And then I also calculated, because what happened is he quit his job. And when he quit his job, because he was hoping he was going to make a lot of money, you know,
in fact, let's do this, and I'm so glad you mentioned that, and I apologize for interrupting you, but I wanted to ask you about that because I understand that at the time that he did his job and did it so well, he was making $80 a week, and his employer insultingly offered an additional $2.50 per week. Is that correct?
Yeah. I mean, basically, he got a 15% raise for uncovering a presidential scandal. But the reality, I mean, and they gave him a promotion. He moved up a rank, you know, because the way the organization worked is they had, it was like a military, you know, he was private, they had a corporal, they had like a sergeant, they had a major, you know, and so forth. So, you know, based on his limited experience, you know, these were usually uneducated, kind of low-level jobs. They were alternatives to working in the factory. But for someone like Frank Wills, it really didn't provide a healthy career path. And the tragedy is, or one of the many I should say, is that his agent diverted him from what could have been a potential career path, because the Urban League had a chapter down in D.C., and they were willing to help Frank get an education, a high school degree, a GED, so he could qualify to be hired for a federal government job, and that, like working at the Capitol Police or maybe even the Secret Service. It didn't require, back in those days, a college degree. It was just a high school degree, because he didn't even have that. And so they would literally pick him up at his apartment. They would take him to class. Then they would take him home, and then they would check up on him, and they hired him a tutor, and they did all these things, and it was working in the beginning. But his agent kept calling and saying, "Look, I need you to come to so-and-so and give a talk. We're going to make $300." And Frank did it. You know, he didn't have a support system. You know, he had a mother who he was very close with, but, you know, she had her own struggles. And so Frank, you know, if you told him to do something, he'd do it. And he saw this agent, I guess, probably as some sort of father figure. And I think the agent, deep down, wanted to help Frank, but he also wanted to help himself, you know. And in the end, Frank never completed the courses, and he never got his GED.
I got to tell you, Adam, you're a wealth of information. In fact, this interview was supposed to be maybe 15, 20 minutes, but the more I heard you, the more I wanted to hear. We have about maybe 3 or 4 minutes left. Tell us what ultimately happened to Frank Wills, and what do you see as the legacy of Frank Wills? The final 2-3 minutes are yours.
All right. Well, this is so in the obituaries when Frank dies, unfortunately, he dies at the age of 52 in the year 2000. And it says that he died of a brain tumor. But actually, what I found out, and it was staring at me the whole time because I had a copy of his death certificate, is that he died of a brain tumor, but it was a result of a complication from AIDS. And then what I later discovered is that AIDS during the 1990s was more common among African Americans than it was in gay men. We think of AIDS, especially during that time, as a disease that was prominent exclusively among gay men. And it was in the beginning. But by the 1990s, it had reached other populations. And what I found was that it was very common in rural Black America. And Frank Wills, who did not ever get married, had lots of sexual partners, at some point was infected with HIV, and of course that led to AIDS. And so he died from AIDS, and that had never been documented before.
I got to tell you, Adam, I'm so glad you mentioned that, because I had no idea, one, about that in particular in regard to Frank Wills, but let me make sure I'm clear in terms of what you said, and please correct me if I'm wrong, that AIDS killed more Black men in the 1990s than it killed gays?
No, Black people. So
Black
women
people,
and
okay.
Yeah.
That's even stronger.
Yeah. The myth is that it's a gay disease. And
yes,
of course,
absolutely.
That's obviously not true. It was in fact predominantly among gay people during the 1980s. But what happens is the disease started spreading to other populations, particularly populations that didn't have access to birth control, that didn't have access to health facilities, health education. And so you're talking about poor America, but in particular, rural Black America, it seemed to be very prominent. And there's some great books out there if you want to learn more about it. And actually, I mentioned them in my bibliography, so please check it out. But,
in fact, I encourage folks to get that book, to check out the biography, and I haven't gotten halfway through your book, but while you're talking now, I'm just thumbing through it. I see here on page 154 and 155, you go into detail, because all I knew about was the report that he had died of a brain tumor, as you just laid out. It's not until I'm looking at your book and hearing your enlightening commentary that it was deeper than that. But please continue. Now, I did say about maybe 2 or 3 minutes ago, Adam, that I was going to give you 2 or 3 minutes. I changed my mind. I'm going to give you 4, 5, 6 minutes, because you're on such a roll. This thing is great. And I'm supposed to be a professional interviewer, but I'm like a student, Adam. I got a page of notes based on what you're talking about. So I'm going to shut up and give you the final 4 minutes uninterrupted.
That's okay. But anyway, so Frank dies of AIDS, and it was obviously, he led a very lonely life. He died in poverty. He has his legacy is complicated. I think, and I say that because Frank was human. Frank had made comments that he wished he'd never found. He was never involved in the scandal, and yet at the same time, he's angry that he'd never received his fair due. So like a lot of human beings, they're full of contradictions, and Frank Wills is no different. I think that it says a lot that Frank Wills was the only person of color who was involved in the Watergate scandal. And he was only involved because it was an accident. And so so in a lot of ways, Frank symbolizes the inequality of political power.
Yes.
The fact that no other person of color was involved just shows how excluded, half the country was, from access to the inside, what was going on inside the Beltway. And, in terms of Frank's legacy, he's, I made a comparison to him and Eugene Goodman, and your listeners may know that name. He was the officer who was involved in the January 6th insurrection. And what he did, I mean, and I mentioned this in an editorial I wrote, because the fear is that Eugene Goodman's name would also be forgotten. But obviously that's not going to be the case. Number one, he received a Congressional Medal. And number two, he was the escort of Vice President Kamala Harris at the inauguration. And my hunch is he's probably going to have a book and hopefully a movie as well, because, I mean, what he did was incredible. And that really did deserve all of the dues and more. But with regard to Frank Wills, again, it was an accident. But nevertheless, but the argument is this: if he hadn't made that phone call, Watergate would not be part of the American lexicon right now. We would not be adding gate every time we talk about a political scandal, like you had mentioned in the beginning. So you can thank Frank Wills for opening up America's eyes to the corruption of what was happening during Richard Nixon's presidency.
Wow. Once again, folks, if you want to know anything and everything about the great and complex Frank Wills, you got to get the book written by Adam Hennig, my guest today. The book is entitled Watergate's Forgotten Hero, Frank Wills, Night Watchman. And I want you to know, Adam, I haven't forgotten about the other books you wrote, in particular, Baseball Under Siege, the Yankees, the Cardinals, and a doctor's battle to integrate spring training. I want to have you on as a guest in the future to talk about that, as well as Alex Haley's book, or I should say Alex Haley's Roots, and Arthur's Odyssey. Adam, you were supposed to be on for 10, 12 minutes. It went on for maybe 30 minutes beyond that, and I want to thank you for indulging us. I'm sure you got a million things to do, and I pestered you and peppered you with so many questions and comments, but you were gracious, and I'd love to have you back. You're a scholar and a gentleman, Mr. Adam Hennig. Thank you very much, sir.
Thank you, Michael. It was my pleasure.
And we look forward to having you back. Folks, if you want to comment on the book, Watergate's Forgotten Hero, please call me and I'd be happy to entertain you. If you want to get a copy of the book, as I pointed out before, go to McFarlandPub.com or get it locally from Hakeem's bookstore, Uncle Bobby's Books, or Harriet's Bookshop. We're going to shift gears now, and if folks want to squeeze in to talk about anything and everything, give us a call. The numbers are 215-634-8065. Once again, 215-634-8065. Toll free, 866-361-0900. 866-361-0900. We're going to take a commercial break in about a minute or so. And as I said, I will be having Adam Hennig back on, probably during one of my Sunday shows sometime between 11 a.m. and 1 p.m. Because when I said he's a scholar and a gentleman, I meant that. A gentleman part because he allowed us to take an extra, 20, 25, 30 minutes of his valuable time. He's a scholar because if you get this book, as I pointed out, well researched, well documented. I'm sure he fact checked 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 10 times. 201 pages of text. 201 pages, including footnotes and bibliography and index. If you want to know about this great black man, this complex great black man, Frank Wills, you gotta get the book. That's why I asked our guest, Adam Hennig, what he thought about the statement I made in an article I wrote 2 years ago in 2019 about Frank Wills. And as Adam Hennig responded, he said, well, he wouldn't phrase it exactly like that, but I think he agreed with the gist of it. And that's why I will continue to write and will continue to repeat, quote, 24-year-old black security guard at the posh Watergate office/apartment complex in Washington, D.C., uncovered the biggest domestic political scandal and crime in American presidential history. That's a direct quote from me. I'm standing by it. I welcome your comments and questions. In fact, I welcome your comments and questions about that and everything else, anything else. But first, a break. WURD 96.1 FM.
Between family dinners, bedtime stories, and study sessions, Pico knows that life never stops moving. So if you need help paying your energy bills, there are financial programs available, like the Customer Assistance Program, or CAP, that offers a monthly credit that can lower your gas and electricity payments. Learn how Pico can help keep your life moving with CAP. See if you qualify at pico.com/CAP.
I'm Allison Felix, mother, activist, and Olympic athlete. As a child, I remember sitting with my mom while she did my hair and told me stories. Those were some of my favorite memories. Now, I get to carry that same tradition with my daughter Cameron. To get it right, I turn to the experts at Gold Series from Pantene. Developed by Black scientists, Gold Series moisturizes, protects, and strengthens our hair. Gold Series from Pantene. It works better because it's made better.
You're never completely ready to adopt a teen.
For late nights writing English papers.
For your teen's music taste.
For dinners, where they talk more on their phone than with you.
For the first time, they call you Mom.
You're never completely ready to adopt a teen, and you can't imagine the reward.
To learn more about adopting a teen, visit adoptuskids.org.
Brought to you by the U.S. Department of Health and Human Services, Adopt U.S. Kids, and the Ad Council.
WURD TV. We're streaming live video of this conversation right now. Tune in on YouTube at onWURD or on Facebook at WURD. WURD TV. Black Talk Media.
When the man says Black Talk Media, he's talking about WURD 96.1 FM, WURD 900 AM, and WURDradio.com. Those of you who want to join in, you can talk about anything and everything. You want to talk about critical race theory? You want to talk about the Bill Cosby case? You want to talk about Frank Wills, the night watchman at Watergate? You want to talk about anything? Give us a call. The numbers are 215-634-8065, 215-634-8065, or toll free 866-361-0900. Once again, 866-361-0900. And by the way, if you want to just check us out by looking at us, by watching us, you can catch us streaming on WURD, Facebook Live, WURD, YouTube, WURD, Twitch. Folks, I got a whole bunch of stuff I want to talk about, but I will defer to you. So as soon as you start lining up again to make comments, to provide information, to ask questions, we'll do just that. Let me finish talking about Bill Cosby. I started earlier by the way, let me just start by saying this. A reporter at the Tribune, when immediately after the Supreme Court, Pennsylvania Supreme Court issued its ruling in the Bill Cosby case, called me and asked me for a comment. And the first words out of my mouth were these: the Supreme Court did a good thing for a bad man. Let me repeat that. The Supreme Court did a good thing for a bad man. The good thing was adhering to the law as justice mandates. The bad man was Bill Cosby. Yeah, I know about and I condemn him for his pound cake speech. That's what he called it, the pound cake speech, when he did a presentation to the NAACP back on May 17, 2004. And he pretty much disrespected and demeaned poor black people. Poor black people who decide to culturally identify themselves. They don't want to take the slave master's name of Michael or Stephen or John or Joe. So here's what Bill Cosby said in that speech in 2004. Those people have names like Shaniqua, Shagiwa, I don't know who Shagiwa is, Mohammed, and all that crap, and all of them are in jail. So think about that. The people whose names are Shaniqua and Muhammad, and as he put it, all that crap, they're all in jail. Come on, Bill, you can't do that. You're better than that. Back in the late 70s, early 80s, you did one of the greatest African history videos in American history. You didn't just talk about the greatness of African Americans as they defeated slavery, but you talked about the greatness of us in Africa. That's the Bill Cosby I know. The Bill Cosby who was America's dad and one of the greatest TV shows in TV history. The man who promoted HBCUs better than any person alive, or dead for that matter, by wearing those HBCU t-shirts and sweatshirts and hoodies on your show. And then in 2004, you demean black people who don't want to call themselves Mary or Karen or Michael or Joe. They want to call themselves Muhammad. They want to call themselves Shaniqua. And neither Shaniqua nor Muhammad or any names like that are crap, as you described it. And neither are they in jail. Many of them are in college. Many of them are in law school. Many of them are in good jobs. Many of them are in homes taking care of their children, their spouses. Bill, I'm not feeling you on that. In addition, that's the one thing that makes him a bad man. The other thing is what he did to some of those women. You might say, well, Mike, what are you talking about? You don't know what he did. You weren't there. Well, no, I wasn't there, but I know what he said. Let me just read something to you in an article I wrote about Bill Cosby. And I wrote this a few years ago, even before, this most recent decision by the Pennsylvania Supreme Court. Here's what I wrote. I must say this. I am no Cosby apologist. I believe he's a serial sexual predator who did exactly what Andrea Constand, as well as the 58 other women, accused him of doing. My belief is based not only on what she credibly testified to in court and what those nearly 60 others who, by the way, did not know each other but gave eerily similar credible accounts, said during separate televised interviews, but is also and especially based on what Cosby himself said under oath during a 4-day, 1,000-page deposition in 2005 and 2006. When asked by a woman's lawyer if Cosby had ever given quaaludes to any women without their consent, Cosby inexplicably said, quote, "I don't know," unquote. Let me stop right there. If somebody asked me, hey, Mike, did you ever give any women any drugs without them knowing? I'd be like, you out of your damn mind. I've never done that, and I'm insulted by the fact that you would even ask me some stuff like that. I wouldn't say I don't know. Why did Bill Cosby say, I don't know? But it gets worse. He also stated that he doesn't take quaaludes himself because they make him sleepy. And the only reason, this is what he said, the only reason he ever had them was to give them to women he wanted to have sex with. In fact, he wouldn't even describe those actions as sexual assaults. He called them, quote, rendezvous, unquote. Bill, that's not cool, man. That's not cool, and I can't defend that. People say, well, why do you say that the Supreme Court did the right thing? I say that the Supreme Court did the right thing because the Constitution of the United States of America mandated it. I say it because the Constitution of the Commonwealth of Pennsylvania mandated. It's all about due process. Let me break it down like this. And I told folks earlier that I would hope that they had their pens and pads out so that they could understand how the law really works, not only relative to Bill Cosby, but criminal law in general. It comes down to this. If you don't remember anything else I say, remember this. Criminal trials are never about what a defendant did on the street, but only about what a DA proves in court. Let me repeat that. Criminal trials are never about what a defendant did on the street, but instead are only about what a DA proves in court. You ever wonder why when the jury has to decide a person's fate, the judge gives the jury two options, guilty or not guilty? That's it. Only those two, guilty or not guilty. Remember, the judge didn't say guilty or innocent. The judge said guilty or not guilty to the jury. You got to decide. Go in the deliberation room and debate and argue and come back and tell me whether he's guilty or not guilty. But your option is not guilty or innocent. Why? Because innocent and not guilty are two different things. I got to repeat that. Innocent and not guilty are two different things. Innocent means you didn't do it. Not guilty means they didn't prove it. So you could do a crime and be not guilty of a crime. Think about that. And it doesn't matter what people see, even if there's a video. Remember the Derek Chauvin case, murdering George Floyd. We saw him strangle this man to death with his knee for almost 10 minutes. Despite that, Derek Chauvin had a trial. He was formally arrested. He had a preliminary arraignment. He had a bail hearing. He had a pretrial motion. He had a formal arraignment. He had jury selection. He had a jury verdict. He had post-sentence motions. He has an appeal now. That's called due process. That's called due procedure. In other words, there's a process that is due for everybody. There's a procedure that is due for everybody. We know Derek Chauvin did it. We saw him doing it. But it didn't matter that he did it. What mattered is that he got a trial. I'll never forget, I represented John Lewis, who was accused of murdering Chuck Cassidy, a white cop. And I got to give him credit. Chuck Cassidy was a great guy. The fact that he was white and the cop was totally irrelevant. He was just a great human being. And it was tragic that this great human being, who was a police officer, was murdered. So I got to give props to Chuck Cassidy, a great human being who happened to be a white cop. Well, my client, John Lewis, shot and killed him. How do we know that? Because it was on videotape. The Dunkin' Donuts that my client was robbing at the time had a videotape going on at the time, so they recorded everything. So the horrific nature of the shooting, the public never saw it, but I obviously saw it because I was John Lewis's lawyer. And some reporters obviously saw it too on the down low, even though they weren't supposed to see it. Let me say this before we take our commercial break in 2 minutes. So in one of the early hearings I had for John Lewis, it was actually a preliminary hearing, as I'm walking down the street, I can see about a half a block away in front of the courthouse a mob of reporters, cameras and all that other kind of stuff. So I'm like, okay, here we go. So as I approach, I'm about to walk into the back then it was called the Criminal Justice Center. Now it's called the Stout Justice Center. But anyway, it's the courthouse. As I'm going in, a reporter sticks a microphone in my face with a camera right next to it and says, Mr. Court, your client murdered this cop. Your client is on video murdering this cop. What are you doing? And I paused and turned around and I said to the reporter, hey, we got two options. We can either take my client, John Lewis, out back for a lynching, or we can take him upstairs for a hearing. Your choice. And the reporter had the dumb look on his face because he understood that no matter what the video showed, there's still something called due process. Due process means the rules that the prosecutor has to abide by to get a conviction. Yeah, the video shows my client, John Lewis, murdering Officer Chuck Cassidy. But we don't execute John Lewis because of that. He has a trial, just like we saw Derek Chauvin murder George Floyd. But we don't put Derek Chauvin in jail because of that video. There's due process. That applies to Bill Cosby. So in Bill Cosby's case, it was an issue regarding the Fifth Amendment. The Fifth Amendment basically says you have the right to remain silent. Anything you say can and will be used against you. In other words, it means that you can't be forced or tricked into giving a confession. Bill Cosby was tricked into giving a confession. Before he testified under oath in that civil case, because the women had sued him for sexual assault. It wasn't in the criminal court at the time. The women were suing him for monetary damages, for money. And when you sue somebody in civil court, before you get to the courthouse, there's something called depositions. That's where the person comes into the lawyer's office and answers questions under oath. I'll explain exactly how depositions go as soon as this break ends here at WURD 96.1 FM.
Support small, black, and brown-owned businesses by joining the Diverse Procurement Collaborative, a community of business leaders committed to supplier diversity. Get engaged at chamberphl.com.
Mothers, please, we're losing our children at an alarming rate. Get involved. Know who your children's friends are and where they frequent. Join us at our gun buyback. You can turn in a gun on July 17th from 10 a.m. to 2 p.m. at Mount Enon Church, 500 Snyder Avenue, or Upper Room Missionary Baptist Church, 7236 Ogons Avenue. Save a life. The life you save may be your own child.
Lifting every voice till earth and heaven ring. This is WURD Radio, 96.1 FM and 900 AM WURD Philadelphia. Black Talk Media. WURD TV. We're streaming live video of this conversation right now. Tune in on YouTube at onWURD or on Facebook at WURD. WURD TV. Black Talk Media.
That's exactly what it is, Black Talk Media. This is yours truly, attorney Michael Cord, a.k.a. Michael X, a.k.a. the angriest black man in America, sitting in for my good friend, the learned and the scholarly and meticulous Charles Ellison, host of Reality Check. Charles does his thing Mondays and Tuesdays and Wednesdays and Thursdays from 10 a.m. until 1 p.m. He wasn't available yesterday, not available today, won't be available tomorrow. So he said, yo, Mike, can you sit in for me? I said, Charles, let me check with the courts. I got some Zooms. They'll be over by 9:15, 9:30, 9:45. I'm good. I can do it. And that's why I'm here. Big shout out to Charles Ellison for allowing me. And also Dee Patel, the Director of Programming and News. And we can't forget CEO Sarah Lomax Reese, all saying, yo, Mike, if you can do it, we appreciate it. And I said, yes, I can do it. And that's exactly why I'm here. We're going to go to the phone lines in about 2 minutes. But let me just wrap up what I had to say about the Bill Cosby case. Before the commercial break, I was talking about depositions. What that means is this. Let's say Troy Wilmore is driving down the street speeding in his Mercedes, and he's not paying attention. He hits my car and damages my car, and I suffer a broken arm. So I sue Troy. But before we get into court for the hearing as to whose fault it was and how badly I was injured, my lawyer will send a subpoena to Troy and say, hey, Troy, before we go to court, I want you to come into my law office, and I want you to answer some questions I have about what you did or didn't do to Michael Cord's car and Michael Cord's arm. So Troy would have to come in to my lawyer's law office. A court reporter would be there. Troy would take an oath to tell the truth, the whole truth, nothing but the truth. And then my lawyer would ask him, hey, how fast were you driving? What street were you on? Had you been drinking? Whatever. And Troy would answer those questions. And if he refused to answer, I would go to a judge and say, hey, Troy's not being cooperative. And the judge would order Troy to answer the questions. And then once we get to trial, weeks later or months later, if Troy says something different at the civil trial that contradicts what he said at the deposition, then he would be exposed as a liar. Well, Bill Cosby was sued in civil court for sexual assault, and Bill Cosby had a trial coming up later, much later. But before that trial, Bill Cosby was in one of the women's lawyers' law office answering questions. But Bill Cosby's lawyer basically said this: hey, Bill Cosby could be facing criminal charges here. I need to talk to the prosecutor in Montgomery County to find out, hey, if Bill Cosby gives a statement in this deposition, could it be used against him at any point, a year from now, 10 years from now, 100 years from now? Could it ever be used against him in the criminal court? The DA at the time, Bruce Castor, said no. He said, I'm not even thinking about filing criminal charges against Bill because the evidence is too weak. And because it's too weak, we can't get a conviction. We can't prove the case beyond a reasonable doubt. But Bruce Castor said, but since we can't give the women justice in criminal court because we can't beat that case, I'm going to go ahead and let Bill Cosby testify in that deposition, because whatever he says there, we're not going to use it against him in criminal court. Based on that assurance from the duly elected DA, who gave his word, who gave the DA's officers assurance that they would never use Bill Cosby's deposition testimony against him in any criminal case, Bill Cosby went ahead and admitted to what he was doing with the drugs and the women without their knowledge. Lo and behold, the new DA comes in and says, I forget what the old DA said, we're using it. That's a violation of the Fifth Amendment. That's a violation of due process. That violates the federal constitution and the state constitution. Remember, Bill Cosby had the right to remain silent. And he decided to testify only because you guaranteed him. And it wasn't Bruce Castor alone. It was the office of the DA. So it don't matter who the next or the next or the next one is, that office was responsible. Bottom line, the Supreme Court agreed that that testimony should have never been presented to the jury. And because it was, Bill Cosby's due process rights were violated. But it wasn't just that. There's something called a Rule 404B motion and a Rule 403 motion. I don't want to get too complicated, but it comes down to this. A judge is not permitted to allow evidence to come in if that evidence presents a danger of causing unfair prejudice, or if it confuses the issues, or if it misleads the jury. In other words, if it's stuff that seems kind of shaky or questionable, you can't let it in. And for whatever reason, the judge allowed it in through 5 other women who had information allegedly about uncharged and unreported sexual assaults from nearly 40 years earlier. You can't let that stuff in, but the judge let it in. And also the fact that juror number 11, before the trial began, he said, quote, "I think Cosby's guilty, so we can all go home," unquote. That person should have been removed from the jury, and everybody in the jury who heard it should have been removed. And the judge himself should not have been on the case. The judge is married to a woman who was a sexual assault counselor. And that's great that his wife was a sexual assault counselor. But if your wife is a sexual assault counselor, or your husband, and you're the judge, you can't be the judge anymore. Because now, how do you go home to your husband or wife saying that, hey, I granted certain motions filed by Bill Cosby's attorneys? Your husband or wife's going to say, hey, I'm a sexual assault counselor. Cosby is a monster. You shouldn't have done that, husband. You shouldn't have done that, wife. So what that judge should have done is taken himself off the case and let another judge rule. So there were so many rights violated in connection with Bill Cosby. The fact that he did it is irrelevant. The fact that he did not get a fair trial is the only thing that's relevant. Let's keep things moving. I believe we got Derek in North Philly who's on the line. We're going to get to him and anybody else. Derek, how are you? How can we help you? How can you help us?
Well, thank you, Michael. Love, peace, blessings, and prosperity. Maintain, Mike. You can help me just letting me speak, Michael, and excuse me, as well for filling in today and doing such a great job. Michael, that was a great interview with Adam Hennick. And it just was sad with Frank Willis, the way how his life deteriorated for doing such a great thing.
Yes.
And it's just sad. So if anything can come out of it now, in a book or movie, I hope that his name is and his person is put in a place where it needs to be put today. Maybe his family could get something for that, because it sounded like they were struggling. But that
and Derek, let me say this, Derek. I'm glad you mentioned that. That's very important, and I thank you for saying that. I hope other people feel the very same way. And just so you know, Derek, now again, thank you for even bringing it up. The great news is that recently, about maybe a year ago, under the leadership of Congresswoman Karen Bass. Karen Bass was the chair of the Congressional Black Caucus, along with the initial incentive and support of our own Congressman Dwight Evans. The Congressional Black Caucus is trying to do something formally with official public recognition for Frank Wills. So it's not over. Nice. Congress is working on something thanks to Congresswoman Bass and Congressman Dwight Evans. Go ahead.
Oh, wow, that's fantastic. That's good news. You being on air today just, really brightened my day, and I'm gaining a lot of strength. The other thing, Brother Mike, I want to speak on, too, is that the thing with Bill Cosby, the ancestors in my family used to say, 2 wrongs don't make a right. Bill Cosby is wrong, and the justice system is wrong. And I wish somebody would take the blindfold off the Lady Justice. Because it doesn't make any sense. If you're going to be fair and justice, you don't need to be blindfolded.
That's a good argument. I mean, you understand the concept. The concept is that if you don't see the people, you'll treat everybody the same because you don't know who's who. But in reality, it doesn't work. Justice should see everything. Keep talking, Derek.
Michael, you know, it would be ridiculous. It sounds elementary and childish to say I'm going to put a blindfold on so you would think I'm not going to do anything. But you still do it anyway. So that's why I just remove it and so we can see you. We can't see you. That's why a lot of things are happening to us as black folks because we can't see. And the other thing I'd like to just speak on Brother Michael, is that we have to tell our own stories. That's a great thing with Adam Hennick, what he's doing. But you know, we have the opportunity to tell our own stories.
Yes.
This is what we need to do.
Yes.
The 13th Amendment, when they told us that we was free, we couldn't read. You know what I'm saying? So we had to take it for what it was worth. We free. We is free. You know what I'm saying? But through the years, when we acquired education and position politically, you know, that should have been something that we should have been wanted to straighten out right there when we got enough education and prominence. It's things that, Michael, that we got to straighten out for ourselves because nobody else is going to do it. You know
Very
what I mean,
well said.
And it's just a lot of work. But we're in a time and we're in a day now, Michael, that we got to stick together, man, because our ancestors are watching us, whether people believe this or not. Every year they give us Black History Month to remind us of our ancestors. But we got to remember our ancestors more than once a year, Michael. We got to remember our ancestors for the understanding that we might still be in the back of the bus. So we got to tell our own story, Michael, and we're not doing a good job at it. But I appreciate you and others who are. But I don't know what is it going to take for us to start telling our own story. Like I said, there are some people who are out there, the Tyler Perry, but come on, Mike, I'm talking about in the community, in the household. We've got to start telling our story, our family's experience to the other members in the family, so we know who we are. And we know what we're fighting for. That's part of the problem. We don't quite. It took us a long time to realize what we need to be fighting for, because half of us thought we didn't need to be fighting anyhow, because racism doesn't exist.
Derek, you hit it on the head. We've run out of time. We appreciate you not only listening, but we appreciate you calling. Derek in North Philly, man. Don't be a stranger. Continue to call, especially when you give thoughtful comments just like you did today. Derek, don't be a stranger. Thank you, man, for calling. We appreciate that. And more important, we appreciate you. Let's go to Delaware County and talk to Tony. Tony in Delco, are you with us? And Tony going once. And Tony going twice. And thanks to our producer extraordinaire, Troy Wilmore, we realized that, or I realized that Tony has hung up. Tony hung up or got disconnected. Tony, if you want to call us back, you can do so. Same thing, I believe, happened to Louise. If you want to call back, you're welcome to do so. In fact, any of you, welcome to call back. The numbers are 215-634-8065, 215-634-8065, toll free, 866-361-0900, 866-361-0900. I got so much I want to share with you all, but I want to make sure that I give you all an opportunity to say what needs to be said in connection with anything you want to talk about. Anything you want to talk about. Now, I got stuff that I want to talk about, but it's not about me. It's about you. You have important comments you want to make. You have important questions that you want to share, and you're welcome to share them. Once again, the numbers are 215-634-8065. Once again, 215-634-8065, toll free, 866-361-0900. Once again, 866-361-0900. As you know, I sat in yesterday for Charles Ellison. I'm sitting in today for Charles Ellison. And finally, tomorrow, I'll be sitting in for Charles Ellison. Even though I enjoyed yesterday, and I got to tell you, there's going to be more enjoyment tomorrow for me. Why? Because I'm going to have a chance to talk to you about something near and dear to me. And when I say near and dear to me, I literally mean near and dear to me. It was, I thought, going to be my life. baseball. I had planned to be and thought it would be a professional baseball player. You know that saying where they say you're a big fish in a small pond? That was me. I mean, you know, you might be the best player on your block. You might be the best player on your street. You might be the best player at your school. You might be the best player in your neighborhood. Like I like to think I was. You might be the MVP of your Little League team, age 14 to 16. You might have played with your Little League team, your Connie Mack Recreation Center Little League team at the city championship Little League at Veterans Stadium. You might have done all that stuff. You might have even had a walk-on tryout with the Reading Phillies before you got cut and they didn't call you back. Even though that happened and I was completely disappointed, because once again, just because you're a good player in your neighborhood doesn't mean that you're a good player enough to play Major League Baseball, and I found it out the hard way. But it was a happy ending because once I realized I wasn't going to make it in that regard, I decided to go to college and become a lawyer. So, as they say, the rest is history. But I mention all that to say that that's why I love baseball, because I was raised on baseball. And, of course, I love black people because I'm black. Putting black people and baseball together, you got Negro League Baseball. And I love Negro League Baseball because of the reasons I just said. It's Negroes/black people, and it's baseball. But it's bigger than baseball because Negro Leagues Baseball, you notice I'm saying leagues, not league. People think that it was just one league for a few years. No, it was at least 7 successful Negro leagues, dozens of teams playing from 1920 up to 1962. That's 42 years of professional baseball. And I know people think that the fact that Jackie Robinson got signed was a wonderful thing, and I respect those people, but I respectfully disagree with those people. I think the end of the death of Negro League Baseball, the death of Negro League Baseball happened when Jackie Robinson got signed. And I know people say, well, Mike, you ought to be celebrating that. That's a wonderful thing. Well, no, I'm not celebrating it, and it's not a wonderful thing. I give credit where credit's due. Jackie Robinson, a great athlete, a 4-star athlete at UCLA. In fact, Jackie Robinson himself said that he wasn't the best Negro League player. But I must admit, and I would agree with that, he clearly wasn't. I mean, I wouldn't even put him in the top, no disrespect, I wouldn't put Jackie Robinson in the top 50 of Negro League players at the time. I mean, he wasn't a Satchel Paige. He wasn't a Josh Gibson. He wasn't any of that. I mean, there were so many other players who were much better than him. And he conceded that there were so many other players much better than him. But here's the thing. Jackie Robinson was the perfect person amongst the Negro League players to break into the Negro Leagues. Why? Because he was perfect as a role model and spokesperson for quote-unquote Negro players. You know, nothing wrong with being a high school dropout. Nothing wrong with not going to high school. Nothing wrong with having a GED. Nothing wrong with not being able to enunciate properly. Well, Jackie Robinson had none of those problems. He was bright. He was eloquent. He was articulate. He was handsome. And because of all that, he was the perfect person to play that role. Not the most talented person to play that role, but the best person at the time. If we needed a spokesperson to be in that position at that time, Jackie Robinson was the great person to do it. But here's the problem. His signing on April 10, 1947, killed Negro League Baseball. Not only did it kill Negro Leagues Baseball, it killed the economies that supported Negro Leagues Baseball. Think about that for a second. That's really disturbing. That's really disheartening because it wasn't just the players getting paid in Negro Leagues. It wasn't just the Negro Leagues office staff getting paid. It wasn't just the Negro League team owners getting paid. It wasn't just the Negro Leagues organizers getting paid, but it was also the black hotels, because blacks weren't permitted to go to the white ones, the black banks that helped finance the black jazz clubs, the black bars, the black restaurants, and even the black bootleggers and the black numbers runners. I mean, for example, in Kansas City, Missouri, and I had the great pleasure 2 weeks ago to go to Kansas City to interview the CEO of the Negro Leagues Museum, and it was the greatest thing I've ever done in my life in terms of a trip. It wasn't like a work assignment. Ultimately, it kind of sort of was, because I wrote an article for the Tribune in connection with my interview of Bob Kendrick, the CEO of Negro Leagues Baseball, but it was like a vacation for me. And to see all the memorabilia, to watch the videos, it was just a wonderful, wonderful thing. And in Kansas City, for example, there was a 13-block area because black people weren't permitted to live or to travel outside of certain areas in Kansas City, Missouri. So instead of black people protesting and demonstrating and marching to be able to move into white neighborhoods or to go to white restaurants or to stay in white hotels, black folks said, to hell with them. We'll build our own damn restaurants, our own damn hotels, our own stores, our own shops, our own banks. And in the 13-block radius that was centered at 18th and Vine in Kansas City, Missouri, black folks did their thing. I mean, it was almost like kind of Black Wall Street in Tulsa, Oklahoma, in Greenwood, Oklahoma, where black people, they circulated the dollar in Tulsa, Oklahoma, anywhere between 36 and 100 times before it left the community. 36 to 100 times. So the bank would give it to the baker would give it to the restaurant would give it to the hotel would give it to the laundromat would give it to the, and just go all around and around. In that 13-block area, headquartered at 18th and Vine in Kansas City, Missouri, it was a self-sustaining black economy and black entertainment center, all based on the anchor of Negro League Baseball, and in that case, the Kansas City Monarchs. But then black folks wanted to be around white folks. And there was a push by the NAACP and Dr. King and others to support that. And I respect Dr. King. I respect the NAACP because I'm a lawyer today because those elders, those ancestors laid the foundation for me. But I wish, again, I'm humble and appreciative, but I wish we had been more self-sustaining, that the approach of the Honorable Elijah Muhammad of do for self, and even Booker T. Washington for that matter, do for self. Many black people feel like not just that the white man's ice is colder, many black people believe that the white man's water is wetter. We didn't need them. We did our thing in Negro League Baseball for over 42 years, and it wasn't just baseball. It was financially supporting black businesses for 42 years. And then on April 10, 1947, Jackie Robinson gets signed, and Negro Leagues Baseball begins to die because now all those black fans that would come to Yankee Stadium to watch black ball players, because the Negro Leagues were permitted to play in some white stadiums. Of course, when the white folks weren't around. Speaking of white stadiums, we got the, and at 12:21, I will be taking a quick break, folks. In fact, we're scheduled for 12:22. So let me just, listening on, is going to take a break in about a minute and a half, but I just want folks to know that we're going to continue talking about Negro League Baseball, but the Negro Leagues Baseball, because tomorrow, and here's the point before the break, tomorrow, July 14, 2021, it'll be exactly 134 years to the very day, back on July 14, 1887, that white Major League Baseball first banned black people from playing. Probably didn't know that. That before July 14, 1887, black people were permitted to play with whites and did play with whites. In fact, black people played white pro baseball during slavery. And it wasn't until July 14, 1887, that blacks were for the first time officially banned from Major League Baseball. 134 years ago tomorrow. I'm going to be talking about that tomorrow, and I'm going to be wearing my Kansas City Monarchs baseball cap and my Kansas City Monarchs jersey and sweatshirt. More about that tomorrow. First, a break. WURD 96.1 FM.
Get in and get seen at the Einstein Orthopedics Fracture Care Clinic. If you think you've broken a bone or have been told by your doctor that you have a fracture, the Einstein Fracture Care Clinic offers same-day, in-person, or telehealth appointments. We don't just give you peace of mind. Einstein Orthopedics provides answers when you need them. Visit einstein.edu/fracturecare to learn more.
Berger Montague is a Philadelphia-based plaintiffs' class action law firm committed to helping Philadelphia's black community. Berger Montague maintains a strong commitment to fostering diversity and equity throughout the legal community and in society in general. In 2020, Berger Montague filed a pro bono case against the IRS when they refused to send COVID-19 stimulus checks to federal benefits recipients with dependent children. Thanks to Berger Montague, people across the United States were able to obtain dependent benefit checks that they desperately needed. Berger Montague supports WURD Radio and Philadelphia's black community. For more information about Berger Montague Law Firm, please call 215-875-3033 or email at info@bm.net.
The WURD Radio newsletter, keeping you informed, engaged, and connected. Sign up by visiting wordradio.com. Scroll to the bottom of the page and type your email address under Connect with Us. You'll receive the latest information on WURD Radio, messages from our president and CEO, Sarah Lomax Reese, exclusive articles and multimedia content, and resources. Stay informed with the WURD Radio newsletter. WURD TV. We're streaming live video of this conversation right now. Tune in on YouTube at onWURD or on Facebook at ForWord. WURD TV. Black Talk Media.
That's exactly what it is. Black Talk Media. By the way, those of you who want to join in, you can do so. The numbers are 215-634-8065, 215-634-8065, toll free 866-361-0900, 866-361-0900. I want to talk a little more about Negro League baseballs, but I got to get to Negro Leagues baseball. We got to get to the callers. Tune in tomorrow to be exactly 134 years to the very day that back on July 14, 1887, white folks first banned black folks from playing baseball. So before July 14, 1887, blacks were permitted to play in Major League Baseball. Blacks played during slavery. Go downtown, right next to City Hall, on the courtyard, outside courtyard area. Octavius Catto, one of the greatest baseball players in America, and certainly one of the greatest, if not the greatest, here in Philly. People know about him as the voting rights activist. Yeah, that's exactly what he was, civil rights activist. Yeah, he was that. He was also a great baseball player. If you read my article in the Tribune, you'll find out more about it. I want to talk more about the critical race theory, more about Bill Cosby, more about gun violence in Philly, and I will, because we're going to be doing the show for the next, 35, 36 minutes. We got to get to the callers. Folks are waiting patiently. Let's go to Center City and talk to George. George in Center City, the microphone is yours.
Fine, Mike. How you doing?
I'm doing well. How are you today?
Good. And I'm glad you. One thing about it is that your listeners always get a Black history lesson, something that they didn't get in school, something that they didn't get in the streets, because they still under the assumptions that it's against the law for black people to know how to read. So you bring it to them, and then you get some of them. I don't want to hear that Black history stuff. Well, those are the ones that have some type of emotional problems. Mentally, emotionally disturbed. And the reason I bring that up, Mike, is that I was talking to some people that they trying to deal with this violence piece in a different way. And these people are professionals that are saying that everybody that's been locked up in the last 3-4 years, when you look at it and check their history and everything, they all got some type of mental problem. Either genetically or just transparent. It's just like it's a disease that needs to be dealt with early on. A lot of them only got a 6th grade education. They thought that, they finished school at 6th grade. And it's affecting them because of technology and different things going on. The world is just a little too fast for them. And, so it makes them act out in different ways of behavior. Imagine a grown man, 20-something years old, can't read, don't know his name, You know, 3 days a week, we pay for people to know how to read, write, and understand. We have tutors who teach them how to write their name. You got people 27, 28 years old do not know how to write their name. And you can walk up on a corner a lot of times and say, I got $100 for somebody can write their name. Most of them are like blow it off or start walking away or start smoking some weed acting like they don't hear you. But half of them can't. They just can't. And it took me a minute to understand that, you know, they can't because of the way they took it out of school. You know, you never learn. Everybody's using a computer, but you still know how to have that signature of your name. So that's one thing that the ways we've been like really putting out and teaching them that, you know. But I can understand a lot of them strike out at things they can't do that their grandkids and kids can do. You know, if you're 28, 30 years old, and you can't like they do basic stuff without a phone. You can't read unless you know. It's constantly the phone is changing things for you. Misspell something and change it for you. So you never really learn. And the teachers today, they're just there for a paycheck. You know, they ain't really trying to learn. This is another key thing, Mike, and I think that you or Andrea will be the only two black people in the city who really care enough about black people to, like, really pull these idiots who went in that room and act like a complete fool and got all this blood on their hands, and they pride won't permit them. And you got some idiots who say, well, we'll never kiss up to a white man. Let me tell you about it. It ain't about kissing up. The Honorable Elijah Muhammad sat down with white folks. Malcolm X sat down with white folks.
True.
Marcus Garvey sat down with white folks.
I sat down with white folks when I was trying to get that slave memorial at 6th and Market.
Absolutely, Mike. That's my point. So when you find these idiots who keep telling these fools, man, I never sit down with them white folks and this and that, like they chewing on a pork chop or sucking on a pig feet bone. You know, you ever see them Negroes who be chewing on the bone, mouth mumbling with no teeth? That's what they sound like. Now, you know McNesby is not going to move, and the mayor's not going to move. And they're really still bitter, and they care less about how you think or how you feel because you're only killing each other. You know, but until you or Andrea get these fools together, these 3, 4 fools together, and sit down with the mayor and McNesby, not that they even would do it. Not even that they would do it. So far, it's these Negroes who are the ones who want, man, I ain't sitting down with them, blah, blah. Yeah, all they want to do is keep calling McNesby a cracker, a racist, this, that, and the other. Do you think he care about what you're saying? You know what his answer is? Yeah, but y'all killing each other. White folks ain't killing nobody. Asians ain't killing. Only ones is constant. Everybody got their own race theory of how everybody killed. But we're talking about who do the majority of the killing of each other. For emotional type things, for stupidity. It's not about money. It's not even about anything that's worth taking somebody's life. These fools getting these guns, which the people who are bringing them in, they tell you, hey, man, the people ain't complaining. Why would you complain? Which is true. If somebody in your neighborhood is selling something in the community telling you, mind your business, you mind your business. You stay out of their business. And like I say, other than Southwest Philly, up there in the Northwest, they got more guns up there than they got in Illinois. And they sit up there and play all this proper, better than everybody else. Yeah, and all that guns and stuff is coming up in there, and you don't see nobody up there going to jail, do you? When the last time you seen somebody go to jail, Mike, other than in Montgomery County, for having these gun houses and all that? They don't run up in them. And these protesters, these people keep talking about, we on the ground, we do this, and we don't do nothing. Because you don't go in those blocks. You don't do that. And those preachers are the worst, Mike. I'm telling you, they're the worst. Oh, they fighting each other and fight back at each other about that money. If you see how they try to trap Kenny off about that money, oh, man, them ends ain't no good, man. They don't know what to do with that money. We're going to help the community. We're going to do this here. And we both look at each other like, really? Yeah, man, you got all that money, and you're going to give them this and that? None of them are going to get anything, Mike. None of them. Larry Krasner had some money he gave them to her. That's the most money they're going to get. All this other money that they got promised, that's all it is, promised money. They give you a promise note that you can never cash.
Let me do this, George. We're running out of time. I'll give you the final 30 seconds. But I want to ask you this, and I'm hoping Maurice calls because I want to ask Kim, Prince, and a few other people who even though I don't agree with everything they say, and they certainly don't agree with everything I say, I respect their research. I respect their facts, including you. So I want to ask you this that I'll be asking a number of people. It deals with the number of homicides, primarily gun-related homicides. And people say, well, it's horrific here today in Philadelphia. It's horrific because of somebody like Larry Krasner. And this is what I want to ask people, and you can answer now, answer later. When you look at Larry Krasner's first 2 terms, starting in 2018, there were 353 homicides in 2018, 353. The next year, 2019, there were 3 more at 356. Now, that's bad. But then if you go back into the research, let's look at DA Lynn Abraham, who's the exact opposite of Larry Krasner. She's pro-cop, and on top of being pro-cop, she's about throwing everybody in jail. Throw the book at them. Well, if Larry Krasner's highest numbers before COVID, we want to take COVID out of it because every city has an uptick in violent crime during 2020 and 2021. So I'm asking you this. If Krasner had the most in 2019 with 356 under his administration. The year before, 2018, he had 3 less, 353. But Lynn Abraham in 1991 had 450. So in her term, she had almost 100 more than Larry in his term. In 1993, she had 437. And 1995, 433. So on average, for 7 years, Lynn Abraham as DA had almost 50 to 100 more homicides than Larry Krasner in his first term. My question to you is, if being supportive of everybody's rights like Larry Krasner doesn't stop gun violence, if locking up everybody like Lynn Abraham did doesn't stop gun violence, I'm asking you, George, and other people whose opinion I respect, what's the solution?
Well, the thing is that you can't, this is the problem, Mike. They can stop it if they want to stop it. You know that. I mean, you're a lawyer and you're in with certain people that, with the people who make decisions in this city. All that other stuff is irrelevant. Lynn Abraham, lawyers, was making a ton of money at the time, but the police were working with her. The thing is with Larry, the numbers are where they at with Larry because the cops ain't working. Okay, plain and simple as that.
Good point. Good point.
Let me clear this. Let me make this real clear with you. The day that these idiots go and make peace, and if the mayor and McNesney accepts it, which I doubt, then you watch how fast they clean these streets up. Watch how fast. And what makes it so bad? You got every law enforcement agency going right along with it. Remember this, Mike. You be careful what you ask for. You said defund the police, which it didn't mean that. Okay, You don't want them in your neighborhood. F them, this, that. You can't say all these negative things and think it ain't going to be a negative consequence with it. Everybody talk about what they should do. They took an oath. Man, that's like used toilet paper. Don't mean anything. And that's childish and foolish to even say it. You know, the point is this. Clean across the country, the FOP and all these other law enforcement agencies gotten together and say, listen, they're going to sit here and defund us. They're going to talk about us. They're going to tie our hands. They don't want us to do this. They don't want us to stop cars. They don't want us. Okay, we'll be like security guards. We're only going to do what we have to do. We're going to do exactly what you say. Be careful what you ask for. Now, watch, Mike, by the end of the summer, early winter, the public's going to be a big outcry. Lock them up. I don't care what you do. Stop this violence. Get them off the street. That's the recipe. You try to tell these dumb people that, be careful what you ask for. Don't go in the room talking that stupid stuff because you ain't going to like the outcome. They thought I didn't know what I was talking about. I went with a certain person in this city to a national convention, and they saying, how is it that you're going to sit in here and all these major cities keep saying defund? And Obama was said the same thing. You got to change the message. You think these cops are not human? You think law enforcement is not human? Why you think nobody run up in a gun house? Because they want you to get these guns. They want this violence. They want you to kill. So the public make a big outcry and say, I don't care what those people say, We want you to lock them up, get them off the streets. We don't care what you do. Just like when Joe Biden did it, it's going to be a repeat. History repeats itself, Mike. You know
well,
that.
George, you certainly answered my question. I mean, I just threw the question at you. You obviously were prepared for it, and I respect that. George, thanks for the call. We appreciate that. Whether we agree or disagree, we appreciate the fact that you do your homework. If folks want to get in and be like George and be like the other folks who got a chance to call in today, we got a few more minutes of accepting calls. The numbers are 215-634-8065, 215-634-8065, toll free 866-361-0900. I want to make clear before we get to Elias and North in the next 30 seconds, I want to make clear that, and George made a good point, that whole notion of defunding the police. I know what it means, but a lot of people don't know what it means. So when people hear it, they think, defund the police, that means we ain't going to have no cops and the murderers and the robbers and rapists. They can just break into our homes and do everything. Well, that's not what defund the police means. But if people think it means that, we activists might have to go back and say, we know we're right when we say defund the police. We know what we mean. But if people hear something different, understand something different, shouldn't we speak in the language of the folks we're talking to so we can persuade them instead of antagonizing them? I got the term that I use in an article that I wrote about 6 months for the Tribune. I call it defang the police. So anytime I write or say defund the police, I also put next to that defang. So I always put defund/defang the police. It's almost like a vicious snake. Well, that snake is vicious because it has these large, deadly fangs. I'm not saying kill the snake. I'm saying remove the fangs. I'm not saying get rid of the cops. I'm saying remove their ability to murder people. So if somebody's having a mental health crisis, don't bring in cops with guns. Bring in social workers with mental health degrees. That's what defund the police means. But George is right. If people hear me say defund and they think it means get rid of all cops and let the criminals run crazy, then I got to stop saying defund. Or even better, I got to say what I currently say. I got to write what I currently write. I always write and I always say defund/defang the police. That's what it's all about. It's all about messaging. Got to keep things moving. Waiting patiently in North Philly is Elias. Elias, how can we help you or how can you help us?
Yo, my brother, how you doing? God bless.
I'm doing well. Good hearing from you. What's up with you today?
Yes, you know how I am, man. Listen, awareness, and strong awareness is the key to get into the ears of our Black and Latino youth. They're not getting that because most of them do not listen to WURD.
Great point. And they don't read the Tribune and they don't watch the news. You're right.
So the Latino radio station, music radio stations, the Black radio stations, do you listen to them sometimes? Because I'm a big researcher, okay? I'm 54 years old. I got a great job. Been doing it for 33 years. Raised 4 children myself. Raising my 30-year-old autistic son, okay? My life revolves around him, okay? And I live, and I have a choice to live away from these crime-riddled communities, but I don't, okay? Because I get into the ears of young people as I get my gas in my car or go to a store. No bodega stores, no stop and goes. I don't patronize those stores because you know the last time we spoke about how I feel about them. Okay, now, gun. I never seen guns dealing drugs in the corner. I never seen guns disowning their little guns, baby guns. Okay, it's the adult bad behaviors in our community. It's our adult music that's creating bad behaviors in these dysfunctional homes. Okay, this is what we need to create commercials and those radio stations so our kids can hear because they gravitate to those radio stations, Latino and Black radio stations that only promote and glorify gun violence, you know, drug dealing, okay, money, and me this and me that, and I have this and I have that, okay? Until we don't create those commercials, we got in those radio stations, need a lawyer, need a car, zero credit. That's all we get, okay? That's all our people think about. Getting a car, getting something, but not creating commercials in those radio stations that promotes to stay away from drug dealing, stay away from bad behaviors, respect your homes, and number one and first and foremost, respect school education, okay? Now, my second question to you is, does anybody have the speed dial? Because I know our mayor has speed dial to Jay-Z. Jay-Z, a couple years ago, made a song, and he's 40-something years old, with this guy named Jeezy, and saying that he sold he sold drugs for 14 years and still counting. Okay, this is what even those rappers.
And he lies. We got about 30 seconds. About 30 seconds.
But, yo, I can go on and on, bro. And another thing, that violence will never stop in our communities because the white government allows people to prey on our black people and store smoke shops. For the past 40-something years, crime will never stop because they're enabling.
And it seems like we lost Elias. I noticed some heavy static toward the end of his comments, but I believe we heard, for the most part, the important points that he wanted to make. So, Elias in North Philly, thank you very much for your thoughtful comments. Even though you faded out toward the end with heavy static, I believe you had some cell phone difficulty, but we heard what we needed to hear because you shared that important information with us. Thank you, Brother Elias. Now, a commercial break. We'll be right back. WURD 96.1 FM.
Are you an educator looking for a life-changing opportunity? Youth Build Philly Charter School might be the home for you. Apply to Youth Build to join a family of educators dedicated to learning and growing with young people. Check out current opportunities at youthbuildphilly.org or follow them on social media at YouthBuildPHL. Join Youth Build today. Youth Build is now accepting applications for the class of 2021.
AARP is working to protect Americans 50 plus by making sure you have the latest information about the COVID-19 vaccines and the distribution plans in Pennsylvania. Just visit aarp.org/PA vaccine to learn who's eligible for the COVID-19 vaccine, when, where, and how to get it in Philadelphia and the rest of the Commonwealth, and what you might want to discuss with your doctor. That's aarp.org/PA vaccine.
This is not a fad for us.
We will not resume our regular programming when things die down. We're not black to help our bottom line or because it's politically correct. We're not joining a fight. This has been our fight, our message, our people. Black lives have always mattered here. We are
undeniably,
indefatigably, unapologetically, permanently Black Talk Media.
WURD. WURD TV. We're streaming live video of this conversation right now. Tune in on YouTube at onWURD or on Facebook at WURD. WURD TV. Black Talk Media.
And those of you who are checking us out by watching us streaming on WURD, Facebook Live, on WURD YouTube and WURD Twitch, as well as WURD Radio at WURDTV.com. You see me holding a baseball cap. It's the Kansas City Monarchs baseball cap, Negro Leagues baseball. You see me holding a baseball. It's from the Philadelphia Stars Negro League team that was in existence from 1933 to 1950. You don't see, but I'll reach over and grab it, and I hope I don't fall out of the chair while I'm doing it. Okay, I didn't fall, so I'm cool. You see me with a baseball bat. It's a Negro Leagues baseball bat. And tomorrow it'll be all about Negro League baseballs for me. Obviously, there's going to be some other issues we're going to deal with. We're going to have a few unrelated guests, and callers can call in to talk about whatever they want to talk about. But for me, I love Negro Leagues Baseball because for me, it's the perfect example of black athletic excellence, and not just black athletic excellence, but black economic excellence. Think about that. While you're having fun, you also make a bunch of money. That's what black people did. That's why, yeah, I know people celebrate the fact that Jackie Robinson was signed on April 10, 1947, but no disrespect to Jackie, but I'm not feeling that. I wish we would have expanded Negro Leagues baseball because once Jackie left, many black fans left. And that was the end of Negro Leagues baseball. That was the end of Negro jazz clubs. That was the end of Negro restaurants. That was the end of black, well, I should say in that case, Negro numbers runners, because they was making money too. And if you frown your nose at Negro numbers runners, you must frown your nose at the Pennsylvania State Lottery. In fact, every state among the 50 states got lotteries. Where did they get that from? They stole it from the black numbers runners. So all that stuff going on was about black folks supporting black folks. I told you all about Black Wall Street in the Greenwood section of Tulsa, Oklahoma. The black dollar circulated between 36 and 100 times before it left the community. Same kind of thing was happening in the black section of Kansas City, Missouri. Well, even though black people were banned and restricted to a certain area of Kansas City near 18th and Vine, they made a whole bunch of money in the process. And then when we sought integration, that money left. And whereas we were circulating it, I don't know, 20, 25, 30 times in that area, once we got hooked up with white folks, the money left. Before we get to our final calls, and I will make sure I get to everybody, please, folks, check out tomorrow's show. I'm going to be talking about more Negro Leagues baseball. I also want to talk about an article I wrote in the Tribune where I'm calling for the boycott of racist white businesses in Philly who don't hire blacks, who don't treat black consumers with respect. I wrote an article about it in Tribune, more about that later. I really want to get into it now, but we got folks who are trying to get in. We only got about maybe 7 minutes left, so let me get to the callers. We got Yusuf in Oak Lane. We got Prince in Schuylkill. We got Shannon in Kensington. Unfortunately, in fact, let's go to Shannon in Kensington. I believe that Shannon is the first-time caller, and we'll spend 2 minutes with Shannon, then we'll try to squeeze in Yusuf and Prince. Shannon, Kensington, how are you today?
Well, I'm here. I'm blessed.
Good answer. How can we help you, or how can you help us?
Okay. I was actually in the newspaper in 2019, the Inquirer, for home theft, victim of it. And I can't believe I got through to talk about it because I've been living with it for 3 years since it began. And the biggest problem I'm going to say is the lack of help that there is for any of the victims, which are usually the vulnerable, the elderly.
All right, Shannon, let's do this. Let's do this because what you're saying is that important. I want to help you personally. Please do this. Write down my email address and email me. I'm going to be tied up with some courtroom stuff this afternoon, but I'll try to get back to you this evening. Email me at michaelcoardx@gmail.com. That's MichaelCoard, the letter X as in Malcolm X, michaelcoardx@gmail.com, and say, hey, I'm Shannon. I'm the one who talked to you about this home theft thing. You said you would help me. Please help me. Email me. I'll help you. Anything else you want to ask very quickly?
No, sir. I appreciate it. You go ahead and let someone else speak. Thank you.
Thank you for the call, and don't be a stranger. Email me today, and please continue to call WURD. I believe that Shannon was a first-time caller, and that's exactly what we want, first-time callers. Let's squeeze in our final couple minutes. Yusuf from Oak Lane. Yusuf, how can we help you? How can you help us?
Yeah, I just called in, sir, to say how well disciplined you are, and you give me the idea that Jules Reynolds National School produced a lot of disciplined people.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Keep
I'll
talking.
always remember that name. When I came out with child welfare, people whose custody I was placed in lived 1 block from that school. I used to walk past there on my way to Benjamin Franklin High School every day because I looked up to them. I said, these are the most disciplined students I've ever seen in the city of Philadelphia. And that was back in the early 70s, and it's still like that to this day. They teach discipline. A lot of people, education is good. It's good to be able to get A's and B's in school, but discipline, that's what comes with. And if you're not disciplined, you're
Yusuf, that's all you said, but it was a whole lot. We appreciate that call. Great call. Quick call, but great call. Speaking of quick calls, we got to be out of here in about 4 minutes, so we're going to give two and a half of those minutes to Prince and Schuylkill. Go ahead, Prince. The microphone is yours.
Hey, see you all day.
Yes, sir. Matter of fact, I'm gonna give you 10 extra. I'm gonna give you 10 extra seconds because of that CU statement. Go ahead.
Beta Gamma was out in the park this weekend. You know, Omega Psi Phi Qs from the First Historical School, college, and HBCU, Cheney University. So just wanted to throw that out there. Also, I think you asked a question earlier. How do we stop the? Oh, well, let me just be clear. You know, white folks teach discipline, black folks teach focus. So you need to understand that discipline could be beaten into you. Focus could be observed.
I like that. I like that.
Just so we don't get it confused. Kids aren't disciplined. The Army teaches discipline. You know, a father teaches focus.
I like that.
I like that. Dad taught him focus. He didn't teach him discipline. He taught him focus, which brings about discipline. But when you ask a question about somebody call and tell me how we can stop the violence, and I say, well, Mike, you know, you knew the answers to preserving Bill Cosby. You know, once it was signed and sealed, you still wasn't supposed to reopen that. But Bill Cosby paid a bunch of other people to represent him, so you couldn't give him the answer to the question. We can't call and say, okay, Mike, here are the 3 things you need to do to stop gun violence in Philadelphia. No, not as long as you got $180 million sitting on the table that you want to give the pastors who don't know the 3 things that you need to do to stop. We can't give it to you. If it gets worse enough, then you're going to have to understand that the people you've been funding don't have the answer. And it'd be irresponsible for us to give you the answers, and you still got that much money on the table. So I'm gonna leave that there. But I tell you one thing, and I thank you for taking and sitting in stay of Charles, because the opportunity for us to keep dialoguing and to communicate is really relevant. And all this shows me is the vast need of an NAACP, which was the conduit some 40 years ago for issues in the African American community. You need some help. We need to tie in not just with the NAACP, but with Lincoln and with Cheney. We need to stop the separatism of all these intricacies and work together, because once you tie them all in, you then got that fist that can knock out some 13 other state schools, IUP, Edinburgh, all that stuff. But collectively, we keep separating each other. We the smartest individuals on this earth that can collectively get together to build them. And I'm going to hang
Prince,
up and listen to you. Thank you for taking
Prince,
my call.
I appreciate that. Thank you very much. And I want to thank everybody else, not just Prince, but Yusuf and Shannon and Elias and George and Tony and Derek and our guests Adam Hennig and Tyrone and Alanian and Germantown Joe and Malik and probably some other people I forgot. But I won't forget this. I'll be back on tomorrow from 10 a.m. to 1 p.m. for the learned, for the scholarly, for the meticulous Charles Ellison host a Reality Check. Big shout out to him. And tomorrow I'm going to be focusing on Negro League Baseball, because tomorrow, July 14, 2021, it'll be exactly 134 years ago to the very day, back on July 14, 1887, that blacks were first officially banned from baseball. I'm going to tell you about that history. I'm going to tie in Octavius Catto. I'm going to talk about Negro Leagues baseball. I'm going to talk about all the good stuff about black sports excellence and black economic excellence. So tune in tomorrow. Also, before I get out of here, I want to encourage people to read my articles in the Tribune. You got to read the one about my planned boycott of white businesses that don't treat black folks right, and read the article about Negro League Baseball. Just go to phillytrib.com, phillytrib.com, type in Cord for the last 2 or 3 articles. And I want to say this, folks. Normally, what I say when I'm heading out is think black, I'm out. But I want to end it with this. Are you looking for a job? WURD has got you covered. We just launched a brand new job portal featuring jobs from some of Philadelphia's leading companies and arts organizations. If you go to the portal right now, you will see jobs from WURD Radio, the Kimmel Center, Her Foods, Always Best Care, WURD Radio, and more. Apply for a job today. Go to our livelihood website at WURDworks. That's WURDWORKS.com. That's WURDworks.com and click jobs. Also, Are you looking to hire diverse talent? WURD has got you covered also. We just launched the brand new job portal to help connect you with diverse talent in Philadelphia and beyond. If you would like to have your jobs featured on our job portal, very simple. Just give us a call at 215-425-7875. That's 215-425-7875. Or simply send us an email at sales@WURDradio.com. Check out the job portal today on our livelihood website at WURDworks.com. That's WURDworks.com. Click jobs, and I am out.